subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
They'd likely be eager to help with the store's construction to observe Pokémon up close. Dak acknowledged. Frankie's curiosity was unsurprising. His fascination with Sceptile was predictable. What's the plan now? Bon Clay inquired about Dak's next steps. I'll visit them this afternoon to discuss things. Dak decided to handle it himself, instructing Bon Clay. Contact some reliable builders to construct a store on the northern vacant lot. It doesn't need to be big. We're not planning to put much inside. With Dak planning to talk to Icebug that afternoon, establishing that connection would make it irrelevant whether Tom was involved in the construction. Should we pay extra to expedite the construction? Yes, have it done within a week. By then, the Navy and the Whitebeard pirates will likely start buying Pokémon in large quantities. Dak agreed, seeing the value in the necessary initial investment. Then, he moved on to activate the Pokémon Pokédex fabricator. The machine wasn't large, so it didn't require much space. Otherwise, the fabrication room would indeed feel cramped. If only there were a quest reward for expanding store space. Without dwelling further, Dak focused on the machine, intending to create a Pokémon Pokédex to test its functionality. Please insert materials. %in Dak followed the material list, purchasing each from the mystery market and noting the cost. Not cheap. After gathering all required materials and loading them into the machine, Dak let out a deep breath. The materials were scarce, but mostly consisted of unheard-of rare materials. No wonder Pokémon Pokédexes hadn't been mass-produced in the Pokémon world. Material cost: 600 magical coins, equivalent to 6 million belly. End of Chapter 71. Chapter 71. Dak has created a red-shelled Pokédex, shaped like a horizontal console, much like an NDS handheld device. It allows for active input of Pokémon names for searching and can scan Pokémon through the camera on the back to gather basic information, also featuring a Pokémon directory. The color might be related to the berries added. Perhaps trying a different berry could work. Dak looked at the color of the Pokédex and thought about a berry used during the material mixing process. He didn't know what that berry was for when buying the materials. It was just an ordinary berry without any special effects. Now, thinking it might be used as a kind of dye. Then there's the 500 magic coins value-added service, which makes up most of the value of a Pokédex. Simply put, technical protection. The function is straightforward. No matter how one studies it, no one can extract any key technologies from the sold Pokédex. Once they dismantle it, they'll just end up destroying the Pokédex, unable to reassemble it because the moment it is opened, all rare materials instantly turn into waste plastic, making it impossible to study these materials from other worlds. Dak was quite hesitant when purchasing this feature, because this feature really seemed unnecessary. What's there to study about a Pokédex? The valuable part is just the Pokémon data, which they could simply organize themselves after buying a Pokédex to create their own specialized database. By then, the Pokédex would lose any other usefulness or value. Why would anyone bother researching or copying it? A Pokédex lacks some exclusive, necessary, rare, valuable features. Only with such features would the 500 magic coins value-added service truly show its worth. For such features, Dak already has his own ideas. For instance, the VIP feature. As for what kind of treatment one can receive at the Mystery Hatchery House with VIP status, that's still under design. Because of such ideas, he purchased this value-added service to prevent others from producing counterfeit Pokédexes for special treatment at the Hatchery House in the future. As for this first Pokédex, it can only be considered a prototype at present, later to be used for experimental modifications and testing new features. The current Pokédex doesn't even match its cost price of 600 magic coins, let alone doubling that for sales. Let's give this one a bond first. Dak looked at the incomplete version of the Pokédex in his hand, fiddled with it a bit, and felt it was of no use to him. If there's anything unclear, Dak can query it for free from the system, which has more comprehensive information than the Pokédex. The Pokédex doesn't even include data on legendary Pokémon, and its various introductions compared to the system like a castrated version, truly a bit rubbish for him. As for why give it to Bond instead of Robin, Robin likes to read and has a good memory. She has already studied half of the Pokemon book. On the other hand, reading seems torturous for Bond Clay, who find it painfully hard to memorize. Bond Clay will need to go out for business dealings in the future, and it would be embarrassing if he encountered Pokemon he couldn't introduce. Having this Pokédex would make things much easier for him, helping him perform better at work. Moreover, Dak compared the book and mechanical versions, and the book version's descriptions are more detailed, rigorous, and even include things like a list of skills a Pokemon can learn. Obviously more suitable for someone like Robin who likes to trace origins. The book version is like material organized by the system for people to read, while the mechanical version is like material directly transferred from the Pokemon world, meant as introductory reading for novice trainers. Dak/system book version mechanical version. That's roughly the relationship. Dak and the system jumble up the book and mechanical versions. One jumble, one chaos. As for spending another 600 magic coins to build a Pokédex for Robin, he'd rather not. Dak could already foresee the life of that machine, left in a corner collecting dust, as Robin, who has books, would definitely not consider the machine. Spending 600 magic coins seems a bit too wasteful. That's almost 10 million belly. Version number 001 Dak, using the dark energy of Darkrai, engraved a sort of anti-counterfeiting mark on the back shell of the Pokédex. He then left the manufacturing room and handed it to Bond Clay. What is this? A Pokédex mechanical version. It's not as detailed as the book version, but it suits you. Dak handed the mechanical to Bond Clay, and his half-hearted explanation instantly quelled much of Robin's interest. However, she still came over to take a look, willing to learn about new things, especially those produced by the Hatchery House. How does it work? Bond Clay wasn't disappointed. In fact, he found the high-tech aspect cool and was motivated to study it thoroughly. You can directly enter names to search or point it at a Pokemon to take a photo or browse through the directory. Dak personally demonstrated it for Bond Clay. Bond Clay also tried putting Smoochum down from his arms onto the ground, then scanned it with the camera. The next moment, information appeared on the Pokédex's electronic screen, with a colorful photo of Smoochum on the right. Not only that, but there was also a narrated voice, but not the mechanical voice of Professor Oak, but Dak's mechanical voice. Even Dak himself hadn't expected this. It was as if Dak himself had entered the information. Smoochum, type, ice and psychic, ability, oblivious, a kiss Pokemon. Its evolved form is Jinx, a curiously spirited Pokemon with extremely sensitive lips. It touches everything with its lips first to try out, remembering things it likes and dislikes with its lips. Good stuff. Bond Clay's eyes lit up, finding the device incredibly convenient. It's missing a lot of things, though. Robin wasn't very impressed with the device. She immediately noticed the huge difference between the mechanical version of the Pokédex and the book version. I plan to sell these later. Dak smiled. That's indeed a decent product, but what if others organize the data into a book and then resell it? This slightly changed Robin's opinion about the mechanical. Also, how should we price it? I'll consider that too. This thing is still a prototype. Its features aren't fully developed yet. I'll study it in the next few days, and once the branch store is set up, it can be sold. We'll consider the pricing then. Dak shook his head and walked toward the store exit. I'll make a trip to Water 7, Bond. You take care of the branch construction. Oh. As Dak left the Hatchery House and arrived on the streets of Water 7, the scene was quite different from before. The last time he came to meet Morgan, it was the day the water gods were about to arrive, and most people had run to the inner city. But now it was the recovery phase. People from the outer city were back cleaning and airing out their flooded homes, making the city quite lively. You could also see many people collecting sea salt on rooftops, which is a specialty of Water 7. The Aqua Laguna was not destroyed by Sceptile, but dispersed by him, falling as raindrops over Water 7, so they didn't interfere with the local sea salt collection. As for the leaves that fell with the rain a week ago, those were magical leaves made from grass-type energy by Sceptile, which soon disappeared. Dak's appearance was on the northern edge of the outer city. This was also one reason why Dak wanted the branch store built on the North Shore, to make it convenient for the staff to commute. Sceptile didn't come along this time, because his presence had left too deep an impression on the residents of Water 7, and his appearance would certainly cause a huge stir, whereas today's business was meant to be secretive. Dak was also worried about being recognized, so he dressed quite conservatively, hiding his hair inside a hood to avoid exposure. His hair was too conspicuous, green. It took less than 10 minutes for Dak to reach the North Coast. This place is known to the residents of Water 7 as Shipwreck Island, essentially a styled junkyard. Only the junk thrown here consists of one thing: discarded ships. Some might be failed creations by local shipwrights dumped here. Others were ships slapped over by the water gods. Tom's Shipbuilding Company was located here, and their building costs were virtually zero, as materials were directly salvaged from the surrounding discarded ships. Dak walked on Shipwreck Island, his feet stepping on various shipwrecks, hardly seeing any intact ground. Being able to build ships from this scrap metal, these people are quite impressive. Dak looked at the unwanted materials on the ground, wood covered with unidentified fungi, iron sheets streaked with rust, hardly anything intact. In the past, the water gods would slap ships from unlucky sailors onto this land. But this year, the water gods were directly smashed by Sceptile's tail, naturally leaving no new materials on this land. But it didn't matter, as Tom's Shipbuilding Company was currently striving to build a sea train, and they didn't need to provide the materials. The world government would. In Water 7, 9 years later, Shipwreck Island no longer exists, indicating that it will be submerged due to the lowering of Water 7's foundations over these 9 years. But if Tom survives, Frankie doesn't disappear, and with the help of Pokémon, this situation might not happen again. Dak leisurely walked, soon spotting a one-story cottage amidst the vast ruins. It was only 1 story high, perhaps better described as a coffin plank. It resembled the house he used to build when playing MC. End of Chapter 72. Chapter 72 in Dak's memory. The images of Frankie and Icebug as adolescents still linger. However, upon seeing them in person on Shipwreck Island, Dak realized these two were contemporaries of Shanks, and it wasn't possible for them to be young. Icebug is now 29 years old, famously known in Water 7 as the genius shipwright, and Frankie is 25 years old, both older than Dak. Hello. Are you looking to order a custom ship? I'm sorry, but we are not taking orders from others during this period. I know skilled shipwrights in all 7 shipyards on the island, and I could introduce you. As Dak approached the small house, a person emerged from behind a nearby derelict ship. Dak turned to look, not recognizing him at first due to his ordinary appearance. However, he identified him as Icebug by his hair color. At this time, Icebug had a clearly visible stubble on his face, presumably left after shaving. No, I'm not here to order a ship. I originally planned to discuss this with Tom first, but since you're here, I'll tell you instead. Dak considered his words and changed his initial plan upon seeing Icebug now. Tom the Fishman is stubborn and, even if informed of the world government's true intentions, would still insist on completing the sea train he has been building for over a decade. It's his lifelong dream to save Water 7. But Icebug is different. The current Icebug already possesses some of the demeanor of a CEO at Gallilaw Company, appearing as a successful and composed businessman. Telling Icebug should ensure he makes the right decisions at critical moments. What's the matter? Icebug is unaware of what he's about to hear. Unlike Frankie, who dreams of building the world's finest ship, his goal is simply to help Tom save their hometown of Water 7. Let's talk somewhere private. This place is a bit too conspicuous. Dak glanced around, noticing other people nearby. It seemed some were scavengers living off materials from Shipwreck Island. To their eyes, Dak, with his handsome appearance, must be a noble from the inner city, either coming to buy materials or to order a ship from Icebug. Some of their looks were unfriendly, clearly harboring ulterior motives. Alone? All right, please follow me. Icebug scratched his head in confusion, then led Dak towards the seaside. There, a small-scale sailboat was docked, about half the size of the Going Merry. It looked like a ship Icebug had been working on himself, quite exquisitely made. Did you build this? Yes. Nice craftsmanship. Thanks. Icebug showed no pride in his skills, perhaps viewing them as just average. Dak's appreciation for Icebug grew the more he got to know him. In the original story, Icebug's role isn't prominent, but he might be remembered for sewing up the Going Merry alone on a stormy night, helping it complete its final journey, saving his crew. But as Dak got to know him personally, his opinion of Icebug improved. "Please sit." Icebug led Dak into the small cabin. "I didn't expect someone wielding the miraculous power of Pokémon to seek me out. When did you recognize me?" Dak was a bit surprised, removing his hood that covered his hair, curious about Icebug's response. "1 week ago, on the night the sea god arrived, he wasn't seen by many. Ah, up close your hair stands out. I remember you're the only one with that hair color." Icebug pointed at Dak's green hair draped over his shoulders. Upon closer inspection, Icebug realized just how strikingly handsome Dak was. It seemed impossible to find a more attractive man in Water 7. And so young. Icebug wondered how such a young man could command such powerful and mystical creatures. Was it some special devil fruit? "Well, that saves me the trouble of proving my identity. I'm Dak, the manager of the Mystery Hatchery House. My employees should have visited you recently." Dak extended his hand, and they shook. "Employee." Icebug frowned, then asked, "You mean the talking bird, or the strange creature riding the bird?" "The talking bird should be Bon Clay, and the strange creature must be Smoochum." Dak massaged his forehead, feeling like the Mystery Hatchery House was lacking normalcy. "Who talks business with a bird? Anyway, let me tell you what I came to inform you about." Dak glanced outside as he spoke. Though his observation hockey is weak, he could still sense ordinary human presence, and someone was outside. Dak tapped his forefoot, and the shadow beneath him moved slightly, then settled. "Please go on. Do you know your master Tom has the blueprints for one of the legendary ancient weapons, Pluto?" "I didn't know." Icebug shook his head, a bead of sweat forming on his forehead. But that was all, just a perfunctory shock. This was indeed his first time hearing this, but he didn't feel the need to exaggerate his reaction, unlike Frankie, who might have collapsed in shock. "Boom! Who's there?" Icebug instantly turned and rushed outside. That information must not be known to anyone, although Icebug didn't show much reaction. He knew the disaster that could follow if that information leaked. He had to suppress this news. When Icebug opened the door, he found Frankie sprawled on the ground, mouth agape. "Frankie!" Icebug's eyes widened slightly, then angrily grabbed the other's shoulders. "How many times have I told you not to eavesdrop on my conversations with guests?" Icebug, is what he said true? Although Frankie is now 25, he still appears as a youth. Just like the Frankie Dak remembered who stood in front of a sea train as a normal human, marking his last moments as such. "Come in." Icebug dragged Frankie inside, then checked outside thoroughly, even going around twice to ensure no one was following before returning. "Don't worry. Those who were tailing just got beaten away by me." Frankie guessed what Icebug was doing based on their long history of bickering and fighting. They knew each other so well that one could tell what the other was up to just by a gesture. Phew, Icebug breathed a sigh of relief. Frankie had inadvertently done a good deed. If others had heard, it would have caused a major issue. "Hey, you Frankie, don't be rude." Icebug slapped Frankie on the back of the head. He knew his adoptive brother's way of speaking wasn't always polite, but it was never malicious. "Then you ask?" You cleared up. Normally, Frankie would have fought with Icebug, but he was also anxious about Dak's earlier remarks, knowing he wasn't good at speaking, so he nudged Icebug. "Mr. Dak, about earlier. How do you think the world government wouldn't be aware of information that even we at the Mystery Hatchery House could obtain? The power of Pokémon far exceeds anyone's imagination." Dak waved his hand, pointing behind Icebug and Frankie. They instinctively looked back. Unbeknownst to them, a mysterious dark creature with piercing blue eyes had appeared behind them. Wow! X2, even Icebug couldn't keep his cool this time. If such a creature decided to attack, they might not even know how they died. Dak watched silently as they imagined various scenarios. For many at sea, appearing silently behind someone wasn't difficult, especially since Icebug and Frankie were just ordinary people, and Icebug would remain so in the future. "He's called Darkrai, my partner, and also a Pokémon. You've seen his power. So, By using the power of Pokemon, we can accomplish a great many things. You also saw how the sea gods were destroyed last week by another Pokemon called Sceptile. Dak calmly introduced Darkrai, showing off Sceptile. Darkrai. Darkrai waved, then retreated and vanished into the shadows under their watchful eyes. Gulp. X2, the sound of swallowing came from both men. They were completely shocked by the Pokemon, mentally classifying the mystery Hatchery House as a powerful, mysterious force. From now on, whatever Dak told them, they would likely believe without hesitation. What reason would such a powerful being have to lie to two ordinary men? Wait, Mr. Dak, did you just say the world government knows about the Pluto blueprints on Tom? At that moment, Icebug suddenly remembered Dak's words, his face paling, panicked like Frankie. Ah yes, after the world government learned of this, they've been eyeing the Pluto blueprints. Dak nodded. According to the original story, the world government indeed had designs on the Pluto blueprints, but they didn't plan to kill Tom. They didn't care about his life and might even spare him to have him build Pluto for them. Tom's death had more to do with Spandam's personal actions and emotions. However, to make these two take the matter seriously, Dak skipped a large part of the causality, mentioning only the beginning and the end. Do you believe the world government would execute Tom if they can't get the Pluto blueprints? In a Chapter 73, what should we do now? Was the sea train made in vain? Mr. Tom spent over a decade on it. Frankie was utterly convinced by Dak's words, becoming instantly flustered. Idiot. Calm down. Regardless of the world government, Mr. Tom would never stop working on the sea train. He had already decided to build it before the world government even approached us. Here, the difference in their temperaments was apparent. Icebug was significantly more composed, even though he was still visibly anxious. Dak sat back leisurely, watching the two as if observing a drama unfold. Mr. Dak, how can we save Mr. Tom? Icebug pondered for 3 seconds before confronting reality. They lacked the means to save Mr. Tom themselves and couldn't stand against the world government. Thus, Icebug turned to the younger man before him. This man had come here and disclosed such critical information, and Icebug was certain he had some plans in mind. Why should I tell you? Dak didn't mind sharing the information directly, but he posed the question to see if it might lead to some unexpected benefits. We'll build the best shop in Water 7 for you. We might not be as skilled as Mr. Tom, but aside from him, there are no better shipwrights on this island. Before Icebug could respond, Frankie eagerly jumped in. Shipwrights possess diverse skills, not limited to shipbuilding, but also designing various room layouts on ships. So constructing a top-notch shop was well within their capabilities. That's fine then, you'll do. The branch's shop environment didn't need to be too exquisite, as it was merely meant to facilitate access. However, Sceptile was to be stationed there, so perhaps designing the branch in a forest style would make it more comfortable for him. Indeed, this was a pleasant surprise. So, what are the methods? There are 3. Dak raised 3 fingers. That's great. Icebug and Frankie were already delighted before Dak detailed his suggestions, hopeful that at least one would succeed. First, Tom could hand over the blueprint of Pluto. Second, you all could leave Water 7 and perhaps flee to Fishman Island. Third, join an organization that isn't afraid of the world government, preferably an enemy of the government, like the Revolutionary Army or us. Although Dak mentioned 3 methods, in reality, only the last was viable. Tom would neither hand over Pluto's blueprints nor leave his beloved Water 7. If Frankie and Icebug truly wished to save Tom, they would ultimately join the mystery Hatchery House, though it remained uncertain if the Master-Apprentice trio would all join. Icebug's face was grave, realizing immediately that the second method was impossible. He knew Mr. Tom too well. As for the first method, he saw little hope. You could try convincing Mr. Tom to hand over Pluto's blueprints. The world government's only goal is that they wouldn't mind sparing his life. Rayleigh, Crocus, Bartolomeo, Buggy, Shanks, all these individuals had survived. Surely Tom wasn't doomed to die? I'll go and persuade Mr. Tom. Frankie didn't think twice, rushing outside impulsively. Discuss it somewhere private. Iceboog didn't follow, but reminded Frankie as he disappeared into the cabin. Once alone, Iceboog turned back to Dak. Thump! Without wasting words, Iceboog knelt before Dak. Dak raised an eyebrow, surprised, but then realized that kneeling wasn't such an extraordinary gesture in their world. It was often used in requests or to express gratitude. What are your plans? Dak could tell Iceboog had probably anticipated the eventual outcome and solution. If I join the mystery hatchery house and serve you for life, can we save Mr. Tom? Iceboog spoke plainly, as if selling his life was an acceptable trade for him. Indeed, both Frankie and Iceboog would lay down their lives for Tom. Even Frankie, who seemed a bit dim-witted, would try to save Tom in his own way, such as recklessly throwing himself in front of the sea train. Stupid but touching. Welcome aboard, Iceboog. There are no hierarchies within the Hatchery House. From now on, we are partners. Dak stepped forward, pulling Iceboog to his feet without directly addressing his question. From now on, your family is our family. Your dreams are our dreams. Together, we'll create our era. Although Dak initially targeted Tom, Iceboog was a fine addition too, younger and perhaps capable of surpassing his master in the future. Plus, it wasn't certain whether Tom would join. Dak planned to construct many special and mobile structures across the sea, such as gyms, Pokémon centers, and other branches. Without skilled shipwrights like Tom and Iceboog, those future plans would be challenging to realize. Okay. Iceboog seemed unaccustomed and awkwardly scratched his head. You'll see, I'm not just all talk. Dak noticed Iceboog's reservation, which was normal since they had only just met. Over time, Iceboog would see that Dak wasn't just a smooth talker. Having gifted eggs of Smoochum and the feather of New Moon, items worth billions of belly, as welcome gifts, he had nothing else to be stingy about. What do I need to do? Suddenly being part of an organization left Iceboog feeling strange and somewhat lost. First, finish building the branch with Frankie. I'll have Bon Clay bring people to help you. We might have 2 big deals in a week, then continue helping Tom with the sea train. Dak nodded, recalling the plot details for this period. The branch should have a forest-like style. Get some fresh, lush trees. Sceptile will guard the branch. Sceptile is that green big guy from last week. Dak grinned and gestured. Iceboog immediately remembered the powerful Pokémon that had scattered the Aqua Laguna with a flick of its tail. No one understood the destructiveness of the Aqua Laguna better than these shipwrights, especially Iceboog, who had seen countless shipwrecks on Shipwreck Island. Knowing Sceptile would be arriving soon eased Iceboog's mind considerably. When is the sea train expected to be completed? If all goes well, by early next year. Iceboog estimated before responding. That's soon. It was now October of the year 1511 in the Sea Circle calendar, just 2 months before the chaotic year 1512. Dak hadn't expected the sea train to be completed so quickly, recalling it was supposed to finish in the latter half of the following year. Yes, because the Aqua Laguna didn't come to destroy this time, our progress wasn't severely disrupted like before. Iceboog revealed a reason Dak hadn't considered. This was not mentioned in the original story, and Dak had overlooked this detail. No problem. The difference isn't significant. On the day Tom goes to court, take Sceptile with you. Though he doesn't obey others, he won't allow harm to come to his companions. Dak waved his hand. Now that they were involved, Tom's death was out of the question. Then bring Tom and Frankie back to the main store. Dak handed Iceboog a pocket token, demonstrating its use in person. This deeply impressed Iceboog, who had never left Water 7. The wonders shown by the mystery hatchery house seemed like another world to him. Iceboog clutched the pocket token tightly, understanding its life-saving importance. More crucial than any Pluto blueprint. He resolved to keep it close even while sleeping. For now, just focus on that. Once you've dealt with the sea train, come help manage the branch. We're really short on hands. Dak stretched and prepared to leave. This visit had been very fruitful. Iceboog's joining meant that the Mystery Hatchery House had a solid technical foundation for its future endeavors in opening 8 gyms and Pokémon centers across the sea. The Mystery Hatchery House needed such talents. As for whether the world government would agree, That's a huge joke. From the moment the Mystery Hatchery House decided to usher in the Pokémon era, the world government had been a major obstacle, a bigger thorn than even the pirates, an organization that must be dealt with. Whether or not Robin, Tom, or the Revolutionary Army was involved, the world government would stand in their way. Not acting now was partly because Dak had crossed too early and the original hadn't finished. So the full extent of the world government's power was unclear. If the Sky King Uranus was in their hands, the Mystery Hatchery House couldn't act recklessly, not knowing what it entailed. The strength of Emu, the Five Elders, and the Knights of God was also unknown. On the other hand, the sea couldn't withstand the chaos of losing the world government yet. A supreme force needed to dominate the sea, more precisely, to suppress those ambitious figures. Without the world government, and before the Mystery Hatchery House could grow, the world would turn into a hellish place. End of Chapter 74. Chapter 74, I'm busy. Extremely busy. This was Dak's only thought after returning to the Mystery Hatchery House. There was too much to do. Bon Clay and Icebug were handling the branch office affairs, and Sceptile had already followed Bon Clay to the northern shore of Water 7, where the store environment was being created to suit him. Dak's main tasks were still untouched, as he was busy discussing the details of the first comprehensive trade with both the Navy and the Whitebeard pirates. The Whitebeard pirates only intended to purchase 10 Pokémon eggs. They weren't particularly in need of Pokémon power, purely wanting to add some interesting and magical companions to their ship. The Navy, however, had bigger ambitions. Sengoku had a huge appetite and initially wanted 4,000 eggs to create 10 battleship-level Pokémon naval combat units. A Navy Admiral ship typically carries about 800 personnel, so the idea was to replace half of these with Pokémon, forming units of 400 human and 400 Pokémon sailors per ship, a strategy envisioned by Sengoku. Dak could only think, "You're very ambitious. 4,000 eggs. Dak couldn't even fathom it. What? Is Marineford too peaceful for you? 4,000 Pokémon babies. If 1,000 of them turn out to be mischievous like Growlithe and slippery like Grimer, would the Navy base even function anymore? Normally, you wouldn't have to do anything. The entire Grand Line's Navy would just come here to babysit." Dak couldn't trust Sengoku with so many Pokémon. He knew the various species and their living habits, and there was no way they could properly care for them without casualties. 4,000 was simply too many. Later, it seems Zephyr personally visited the Fleet Admiral's office and let Sengoku take care of Growlithe for 3 days, after which Sengoku quickly changed his tune. From 4,000 eggs, he dramatically reduced his request to 400 eggs. Moreover, Dak added several conditions to the deal, without which he wouldn't even sell the 400 eggs. Conditions included: after the Pokémon hatch, their trainers must stay by their side continuously, caring for them until they mature. The Pokémon cannot be trained until they have matured. The Mystery Hatchery House retains the right to inspect the living conditions of the Pokémon at the Navy base at any time, and many other stipulations aimed at ensuring the well-being of these Pokémon babies. Eventually, a deal was struck. Sengoku dispatched a unit of Headquarters Rear Admirals to Water 7, near the Mystery Hatchery House branch on the North Shore, where they constructed a small Navy base. A team of 30 learners was also stationed there. A Headquarters Rear Admiral sounds impressive, but there are only a few dozen admirals, and with people needed to guard new world bases, go on missions, and maintain a presence at headquarters, they couldn't spare anyone to come to Water 7. Remember, this is paradise, and so close to Eni's lobby. Why would they need an admiral stationed here? Sending a rear admiral to oversee things was already giving a lot of face to the Mystery Hatchery House. Little did they know that this rear admiral was actually relieved. What's the difference between being stationed here and retiring? Dak was satisfied with Sengoku's arrangements, but now faced another dilemma. What kind of Pokémon eggs should he sell to the Navy? And what quality should these Pokémon eggs be? Definitely not purple. The Navy couldn't afford a price tag of 400 billion belly for that. Even blue-quality Pokémon eggs cost 40 billion, and the Navy would need to request funds from the world government to afford them. Dak specifically asked Sengoku about his budget, and he mentioned getting 30 billion from the world government, but nothing more. 30 billion, is that a lot? Compared to individual pirate bounties, it's a substantial amount. But consider how many pirates there are and the total amount of bounties. In the future, the combined bounty of the Straw Hat Pirates alone exceeds 8.8 billion. The world government comprises at least 170 member countries. Doflamingo once intercepted a kingdom's tribute to the celestial dragons in exchange for a warlord position, knowing full well how much was involved. Perhaps that's why, when he later demanded 10 billion belly from King Riku of Dressrosa, he knew Riku could muster that sum. And indeed, Riku did manage to gather the money. Considering Dressrosa's impoverished state under King Riku, the annual tribute to the celestial dragons must have been substantial, certainly around 30 billion belly. Otherwise, Dressrosa would have developed sooner. As for the Germa Kingdom, managing to produce such a vast clone army under the world government's nose without a bounty, being able to alter Sanji's bounty and conditions, the annual tribute they pay is unimaginable. Even during the Sabidi Archipelago incident, a second-generation celestial dragon casually offered 500 million for a mermaid, indicating the immense wealth these individuals control. So, 30 billion is not much for the world government. Not exactly pocket change, but they wouldn't miss it. This was also a key reason why the Navy could never become independent from the world government. Dak now had a figure in mind. 30 billion could be spent without concern. Any more would have to come from the Navy's own funds. They had the money, but not much more than 40 billion could be spared. That settled it. Magical Marketplace, Pokémon Egg, blue 500 magic coins, 400 randomly assorted blue quality eggs. Purchasing from the Magical Marketplace at half the retail price. One blue quality Pokémon egg costs 500 W belly. 400 eggs would then require 20,000 magic coins. Dak had just over 10,000 magic coins on hand. Where was he supposed to get that much money? He had no choice but to ask the Navy to pay a 20 billion belly deposit first. Using the pocket tokens saving feature, this transaction was easily completed. 20,000 magic coins appeared in Dak's balance and then vanished, turning into Pokémon eggs, blue, x 400. Once the Navy takes these 400 Pokémon eggs after a week, his mystery hatchery house will make a clean 20 billion belly profit, or 20,000 magic coins. A massive fortune. The legendary Pokémon he had been dreaming of seemed within reach, beckoning to him just a week into the future. Moreover, the remaining magic coins would be enough for him to exchange for a special ability seed. In the world of pirates, anyone who masters observation hockey could be considered a special ability trainer. They could help their Pokémon predict opponents' moves using observation hockey, thereby guiding or warning them. But psychic powers are different. Observation hockey doesn't have offensive capabilities. Now, Dak could hardly contain his excitement and joy, but there were urgent matters to attend to, so he forced himself to calm down and continue working. 400 Pokémon eggs in the store, plus the original little ones, nearly left him and Robin without a place to stand, even using Dak's bedroom and staff quarters. Dak hurriedly called Bon Clay, asking him to stay with Sceptile and Water 7 for the next few days. The mystery hatchery house would close for a week. The main store was locked down, inaccessible to anyone outside. Robin also began a busy routine, checking the status of the 400 eggs daily. Although an accident was nearly impossible within the hatchery house, vigilance was necessary. After about a week, when the branch office and the Navy base were completed, Sengoku would send people to transport the eggs, with Zephyr and Kazan probably working overtime to select suitable trainers. Dak took the opportunity to let the 400 eggs benefit from the store's incubation lamps to speed up hatching. The transaction with the Whitebeard pirates wasn't urgent, so it could be delayed for a few days. Dak still had plenty to do. He needed to study the VIP features of the Pokédex and prepare Pokémon for the main mission. He didn't have a moment to spare. Dak was thinking of hiring again. To create a superior Pokémon League, sufficient manpower was essential. The Hatchery House had many vacant positions, such as researchers, medical staff, inspectors. The former two were obvious, but inspectors represented the Hatchery House in periodic visits to clients to ensure Pokémon were treated fairly, and future officials for various competitions and events. I need to hire more people. Dak, alone in the manufacturing room, tinkering with the Pokédex machine, muttered about future plans. For now, getting research personnel in place was critical. Dak couldn't manage training Pokémon hatchlings, ponder new Pokédex features, and communicate with Sengoku about transactions all at once. Just do it. Dak decisively put down his work, donned a white hooded cloak, and stepped out of the store. Destination: random. It depended on who he might meet. Grand Line: Paradise. Spring Queen City, also known as St. Poplar or St. Birch, a luxurious city filled with the breath of art, is one of the most favored tourist destinations among the wealthy on the Grand Line. St. Birch is also a city on the C train route. In the original story, after CP9's defeat at Eni's Lobby, they were pursued by the world government and navy. Using the powers of the Dordor fruit, they fled Eni's Lobby, took the C train to St. Birch, and earned money through performances to treat Rob Lucci's injuries. Rob Lucci proved effective, leading the once derelict CP9, under the world government's pursuit, to rise to CP0 status within 2 years. The bond among CP9 members, their unyielding commitment to each other, would have qualified them to purchase Pokémon. Unfortunately, being under the world government, they had no chance. St. Birch is also known for another famous location: Joy Street. Stussy, the queen of Joy Street and one of the underworld leaders, is from there. This woman has many identities, but her secrets have been unveiled. She is a clone created by Vegapunk using Mississippi Backen's genes, obediently following his orders. Her long-term undercover mission in CP0 has been ongoing for over a decade. Dak's current destination is none other than Joy Street in St. Birch. There, he encountered a group of unexpected individuals. The Don Quixote family. P.S. Don't worry about earning too much money or crashing the monetary system. There will soon be very costly needs, and the author will spare no effort to balance the monetary system. End of chapter 75. Chapter 75. In the hormone-charged atmosphere of Joy Street, few people can sit quietly and enjoy a cup of coffee, except perhaps those who have just vented their frustrations. Dak, however, is an exception. Sitting at the entrance of a cafe on the street, he sips a hot chocolate, ignoring the calls of a lady across the street trying to get his attention. He's busy keeping a discreet eye on the actions of the Don Quixote family. On the other hand, Doflamingo felt thirsty and decided to stop by a roadside cafe with his family. As they settled down for a relaxed coffee break, they noticed a man in a white cloak sitting next to them, staring intently at them. "Pika, go ask that guy what he wants," Doflamingo instructed, pointing to the strangely dressed, rotund man beside him. Despite his odd attire, no one dared to laugh at Senior Pink in front of Doflamingo, as those who had ridiculed him in the past had met grisly ends. To achieve his ambitions, he was a man who would stop at nothing, even sacrificing his own family if necessary. However, aside from that, no one could harm or even mock a Don Quixote family officer, especially after the incident with Rosanani, which had profoundly changed Doflamingo. Senior Pink responded, moving towards Dak with a pacifier in his mouth, a habit he adopted after the death of his wife and child. Senor, had he been discovered? Dak's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected his surveillance to be noticed. Wasn't the most dangerous place supposed to be the safest? Although discovered, Dak was not perturbed. To be honest, all of St. Poplar combined wouldn't stand a chance against him and Darkrai if it came down to a fight. "Hey, sir, why have you been staring at us?" Senior Pink sat down opposite Dak, his sunglasses failing to hide the scrutiny in his eyes. "I didn't expect to be noticed." Dak shook his head and removed his hood. "You are quite cautious. Is this guy serious?" Sweat dripped down Senior Pink's forehead as he failed to detect any hint of jest in Dak's demeanor. "Pika, let's go. No need to waste words with this one." As Senior Pink prepared to say more, Diamante's voice reached them. They decided to leave. Just moments before, Doflamingo had laughed off Dak's comments and promptly left with his group. "You're lucky." Senior Pink gave Dak a final look before following his comrades. In his view, if this weren't Joy Street where Stussy forbade killing, Doflamingo would have surely eliminated this man. "It seems I'm not the one who's lucky." Dak finished his coffee and continued to follow the Don Quixote family from a safe distance within the crowd, believing they wouldn't notice. The Don Quixote family, famously known to be intercepted by those who cross time, arriving in the world of One Piece, targeting the Don Quixote family guaranteed high-quality gains. Dak, in fact, had a business proposition specifically for Senior Pink and silently followed the family to see what they were up to. At this time, Doflamingo was not yet the underworld's greatest ruler known as Joker. He was only one of many. The Don Quixote family would need to take over Dressrosa and establish the Smile Factory and arms production to achieve that status. After about 15 minutes, the Don Quixote family entered a brothel. Dak was puzzled. Given the Don Quixote family's usual style and wealth, why would they need to visit a brothel to find women? Darkrai, go take a look. Knowing he might be discovered if he followed them inside, Dak sent Darkrai while he waited at a corner down the street. Unbeknownst to him, various suspicious characters had started to appear at every corner of the street, all seemingly focusing on the brothel. Dak blending in didn't seem out of place at all. It looks like the underworld is up to something big. Dak muttered disinterestedly, not at all curious about their plans. He was far too busy to meddle in underworld affairs. After about half an hour of standing and almost dozing off, Darkrai suddenly emerged from a nearby wall, grabbed Dak, and flew into the sky. What? Dak, barely awake, was shocked to find himself suddenly airborne. His heart almost stopped. Boom! Before he could ask Darkrai what was happening, the brothel below them exploded. Had Dak remained on the spot, he might have been caught in the blast. What's going on? Dak's eyes sparkled as he looked down at the now roofless brothel. The scene below seemed far from peaceful, with the 7 major underworld leaders apparently gathered there, and it didn't look like their negotiations had gone smoothly. Let's go down. Dak patted Darkrai, signaling that it was too conspicuous to remain in the sky. They returned to a secluded corner, and Darkrai went back to hiding in his shadow, watching over him. Just when Dak thought the underworld leaders were just posturing and unlikely to fight, a sudden battle erupted. Gunfire and explosions rang out, accompanied by screams and the chaos of fleeing people. Hidden in an alley, Dak was observing the situation when he noticed a dark cannonball headed towards 2 sisters trying to escape. The older sister quickly covered her younger sibling in an embrace. Darkrai saved those sisters. Without hesitation, Dak decided to intervene. If he hadn't seen it, or if the sisters had been villains, it might have been different. But witnessing such a scene, how could he not act? Dak didn't consider himself the wise and cunning protagonist of an apocalyptic tale. With a gesture, Darkrai instantly darted out, absorbing the cannonball into a dark void. X2, the sisters, stunned, looked at Darkrai, clearly shocked by their sudden rescuer. Without saying much, Darkrai pointed towards Dak, who was standing in an alley, and waved at the sisters. After a moment's hesitation, the sisters ran towards him, knowing all too well how to survive on Joy Street. Go inside. Dak casually opened a door beside him and ushered the sisters in. Only as they approached did Dak realize that these were no strangers but Monet and Sugar, who would have joined the Don Quixote family in another year, according to the original story. Now, it seemed likely that the family had intended to recruit and utilize the sisters during this chaos, but Dak had now intercepted them. Regrettably, the sisters appeared to be ordinary humans, having not consumed the snow or hobby fruits yet. Presumably, those fruits were either still in the Don Quixote family's possession or not yet obtained. Regardless, Dak hadn't saved them to exploit their abilities. Even without their devil fruit powers, they could be trained for roles like Pokémon referees or coordinators for competitions. Positions that didn't require special skills, since everyone in this world will be starting from scratch with Pokémon contest rules. Let's find a safer place, Darkrai. As the battlefield expanded, Dak had Darkrai move them away from the fray. 2 hours later, the conflict finally ended. Joy Street was largely destroyed, with Stussy suffering the heaviest losses. After a bout of violent negotiations, it seemed Stussy had gained the most, given her control over the territory and numerous subordinates, including some from the world government. scattered throughout the area. The Don Quixote family's losses were moderate. Though the officers were somewhat injured, there were no casualties. After concluding his business, Doflamingo didn't linger, quickly moving his group towards the shores of St. Poplar. But just as they were about to board their ship, an obstacle appeared. "It's you." Senor Pink instantly recognized the figure before him. The man with the abysmally poor spying skills. "Yes, it's me, the renowned king of peeping of the underworld." Dak casually flicked his hair. The Don Quixote family fell silent. End of chapter 76. Chapter 76. Doflamingo's forehead veins bulged, clearly at his limit with Dak, fingers twitching as if ready to eliminate the nuisance himself. Buzz. But before Doflamingo could make his move, a deep crimson surge of Conqueror's hockey swept through the area. After 3 seconds, Dak retracted his hockey, looking pleased with the demonstration. Sweat trickled down Doflamingo's forehead, and only 4 people, including his top 3 executives and Senor Pink, remained standing beside him. "Now, can we have a serious conversation?" Dak's face bore a gentle smile, as if the overwhelming display of hockey was unrelated to him. "Who are you?" Doflamingo's agitation settled, the veins on his forehead smoothing out, a sign he was regaining his composure. The strength of Dak's hockey was something Doflamingo hadn't encountered before, its oppressive force palpable even to him. "Let me introduce myself. I'm Dak, manager of the Mystery Hatchery House." "Mystery Hatchery House, huh? What does the king of Pokémon want with me?" Doflamingo recalled hearing rumors about the revolutionary Pokémon that had stirred massive waves across the seas recently. They had briefly discussed these creatures at their gathering of the 7 underworld leaders, speculating about the person who wielded such power. Unexpectedly, that very individual now stood before him. Initially skeptical about the real influence and potential of Pokémon, Doflamingo was now a believer, having witnessed Dak's display of power. His ambition was undeniable. The forces at his command were far from ordinary. Doflamingo's eyes, hidden behind sunglasses, gleamed faintly. His interest in Pokémon's power peaked. If not for Dak's demonstration, Doflamingo might have already been negotiating in his typical, aggressive manner. "Actually, I have an item here called a crescent feather." "A feather?" Doflamingo's brow furrowed in confusion, not following Dak's lead. Nevertheless, he listened intently as Dak continued. "Yes, Pokémon possess a variety of powers, like Darkrai here." Dak tapped the ground lightly, and Darkrai emerged from the shadows. Before their widened eyes, Darkrai spread its arms, enveloping them in an endless vortex of darkness, momentarily isolating them from the outside world. Silence fell. Overwhelmed, Doflamingo had nothing to say, his thoughts racing silently. The crescent feather comes from a Pokémon as powerful as Darkrai. It has a magical ability that allows one to see deceased loved ones in their dreams. Dak's last remark was directed at Senor Pink, pinpointing his true aim. He knew Senor Pink would yearn to see his beloved Lucian again. Doflamingo caught onto this as well. Having investigated Senor Pink's change of heart over the past 2 years, he knew what had happened and how desperately Senor Pink wished to see Lucian again. Doflamingo didn't understand this desire. To him, the dead were just that, dead. Even having personally killed Rosanani, he wouldn't want to see him again, preferring to remember him in his own way. However, Doflamingo respected his family members. "We'll take that feather." Without hesitation, Doflamingo spoke, not even turning to consult Senor Pink. It wasn't necessary. Doflamingo knew Senor Pink well enough to decide for him, fully aware that he would forego such a precious chance to avoid being exploited, a testament to the loyalty within the Don Quixote family. "Wait." Doflamingo seemed about to add more, but Dak didn't give him the chance to continue. In an instant, Dak and Darkrai vanished from the spot, leaving the Don Quixote members alone under the sky, their faces devoid of joy after the terrifying experience. "If he had wanted to kill us, nobody in the world would have known. Cheer up. You'll see your wife soon enough. Think about what you want to say to her." Doflamingo interrupted Senor Pink, then used his string fruit powers to move the unconscious bodies onto the ship, quickly departing with his crew. Once the Don Quixote ship was out of sight, Dak emerged from the shadows. He knew Doflamingo had intended to discuss Pokemon business. Given his ambitions, Doflamingo wouldn't easily give up on the power of Pokemon. But Dak had no interest in dealing with him. Despite Doflamingo's popularity among fans for his compelling backstory, his actions, slave trading, arms smuggling, and other unspeakable deeds, made him far worse than a typical pirate. In spite of his loyal followers, his moral corruption was beyond redemption. If Pokemon chose to ally with them, Dak wouldn't interfere, respecting their choice. But he wouldn't intervene if they were captured or executed by the Marines for their crimes. And now, selling Pokemon eggs to the Don Quixote family? Absolutely not. End of Chapter 77. Chapter 77, when Dak returned to the mystery hatchery house, it seemed that Robin had already calmed the two new staff members. At least this was true for the 11-year-old Sugar. Sugar had been well protected by her sister and had a limited understanding of the world. She was still in the process of embracing new things, so she quickly adapted to everything around her. Her more mature sister, Monet, seemed a bit slower to adjust. She had a solid understanding of the world, and the appearance of the mystery hatchery house was warping her worldview. It was like someone from a technological era suddenly being able to cultivate magic. Children might think nothing of it, but adults would definitely experience a shock to their cognition. At this moment, Sugar was happily playing with the Pokemon babies, who seemed to love her innocent nature. Monet, however, sat quietly, gazing over the lawn filled with eggs and the little creatures playing with her sister. As Dak entered, Monet immediately stood up to greet him but hesitated, unsure of what to say, so she simply bowed deeply. "Thank you for saving us." "No problem. Have you had a chance to learn a bit about our mystery hatchery house?" Dak removed his white cloak and handed it to Robin, who approached to take it. "Yes," Monet replied, noticing Dak's long green hair, which was strikingly similar to her own. She couldn't help but give it a second glance. "Wow, Big Brother's hair is just like sister's. Maybe you're a long-lost family member." Sugar had also noticed Dak's hair, and, with a Dedenne perched on her head, she bounded over to Dak and gently touched his hair. She had always envied other children who had complete families and wanted one of her own. Of course, Sugar knew they weren't actually related to Dak. She was just saying this perhaps to make him happy, and then he might let them stay. "Sugar, don't say nonsense." Monet pulled Sugar back. Living in a place like St. White Poplar, Monet knew how to survive. Assuming the head of a powerful place like the mystery hatchery house was formidable, she worried that Sugar's careless behavior might offend him. "Haha, I wish I had a cute sister like you." Dak wasn't bothered by their naive impressions. He simply smiled warmly. "Then, can Sugar and I stay here with you?" Sugar eagerly looked up at Dak with hopeful eyes. Dedenne voiced its thoughts. "Of course, we're really short on staff here. If you'd like to stay and help me out, I'd really appreciate it." Dak smiled and patted the Dedenne on its head. "Yay!" Sugar hugged Dedenne and started hopping joyously around the lawn, carefully avoiding the Pokemon eggs. She was careful and tender-hearted. Dak nodded approvingly. He hadn't decided what kind of job to train Sugar for, as he hadn't yet identified her talents. But there was no rush. After all, Sugar was still very young. "We're very grateful for your hospitality." Monet was visibly moved as she bowed to Dak, relieved that she no longer had to worry about living in fear or dealing with unruly customers. "What did you do in St. White Poplar?" Dak thought it was important to know what Monet had been doing before. "I was a bartender at a pub," Monet said somewhat sheepishly, unsure how her skills could be useful here. Dak considered that Monet might be suited for research or developing products like Pokemon incense or muffins. But those roles weren't urgently needed. Right now, the biggest gaps were in research, inspections, and medical care. "I can learn. I'm a fast learner, and I'm willing to do any job." Seeing Dak's concerned expression, Monet quickly offered her eagerness to adapt, fearing they might be turned away. "You'll be my assistant for now. I'll teach you how to use the equipment in a manufacturing room, and you might need to conduct some research later." "Okay." Monet agreed immediately, although she felt a bit overwhelmed by the prospect of doing scientific work. "What about me? What will Sugar do? Sugar ran up to Dak at that moment. What would you like to do? Dak frowned slightly, thinking of assigning her some light tasks. I want to fight bad guys. Some creepy guys used to follow my sister, and I scared them off. I'm really strong. Sugar swung her fist to show her strength. Even if you say so, Dak sighed. Even if Sugar claimed to be strong, she was just an 11-year-old girl, and the mystery hatchery house didn't really have much need for fighting. Sugar, stop messing around. Monet reached out to pinch Sugar's cheek, turning it red. I'm not messing around. Sugar was stubborn. How about this? Dak thought for a moment and then came up with an idea. Both Monet and Sugar looked at Dak curiously. Sugar, you'll be the captain of our security team. You'll be in charge of maintaining safety and peace in the hatchery house. If a customer causes trouble or if the Pokémon start fighting, it's your job to step in, enforce the rules, and teach them a lesson. Dak, looking at Sugar's emerald hair, couldn't help but smile as he thought of a profession from another world. He planned to train Sugar to be a Miss Junsar of the future. For now, her responsibilities would only extend within the safe environment of the Mystery Hatchery House. Great. Leave it to me. Sugar patted her chest confidently. Deden expressed its readiness to help Sugar. Monet shook her head in resignation, but was somewhat relieved. The young man in charge seemed easygoing and even willing to indulge her sister's playful side. In her eyes, Dak's accommodation was merely playful, letting the little girl enjoy herself without feeling burdened. She didn't realize Dak seriously considered training Sugar for a security role. By the way, you can just call me Dak. No need for boss or manager. We are partners in creating the Pokémon era. Dak instructed Monet and Sugar on how to address him, making them feel more at ease as part of the team. Okay, they both nodded. After sorting out the titles, Sugar continued to play outside. Robin watched over the Pokémon eggs, and Monet followed Dak into the manufacturing room to learn about the equipment. Dak showed her how to use various machines and encouraged her to think about potential developments for the Pokémon decks. I'll leave you to think about this. It's still early, so I'm going out to see if I can recruit more staff. Leaving Monet in the manufacturing room, Dak greeted Sugar and Robin before stepping out again. Research staff was somewhat in place, but inspectors and medical staff were still needed. For inspectors, it would be best to find men with a somewhat intimidating appearance, someone who looks like they wouldn't tolerate mistreatment of Pokémon. For medical staff, maybe someone like Nurse Joy, a pink-haired woman, could be interesting. In a Chapter 78. Chapter 78, the North Blue. Once the most powerful sea in the world, due to the presence of the Vinsmoke and Don Quixote families, the North Blue has seen a decline in overall strength. The Vinsmoke family has transformed into the seafaring kingdom of Germa 66 with no fixed territory, while the Don Quixote family has advanced towards a new world. The departure of these two major powers has led to increased chaos in the North Blue. Family organizations, a hallmark of the North Blue, resemble the gangs of the West Blue, but with a more distinct class structure. Today, family skirmishes over territory and profit are common sights across the islands of the North Blue. Previously, under the control of the Don Quixote family, these families dared not challenge them, staying quietly in their designated territories out of sight from Don Quixote da Flamingo. However, as the Don Quixote family gradually reallocates its forces to the Grand Line, these lands have become no man's land, stirring unrest among the families. Amidst the struggle, the casualties often include innocent bystanders, as these family members fire at will, not caring if the targets are foes. On a small island in the North Blue, only a small impoverished town sits, with a population just under 100. Chosen as a neutral ground for a deal between two families, the arrangement falls apart and leads to a direct conflict. Bellamy, a mere 19-year-old, becomes the sole survivor of this conflict. He was just a local delinquent, known for his arrogance and for beating up troublesome kids who dare to steal from the market vendors. These vendors, in turn, paid Bellamy protection money, which he used to keep the peace on his turf. Today, these troublesome kids will no longer be a problem for him. The local vendors will no longer give him poor-quality apples. He has no home to return to. Impossible. Hiding in a barrel, Bellamy watches the chaos unfold outside with bloodshot eyes. He vows to survive, to become stronger, and to mercilessly exact revenge on his foes. Not everyone can be Uzumaki Naruto, enduring without hatred. Most are like Uchiha Sasuke, bearing grudges after losing loved ones. At that moment, a handsome young man steps out from a nearby inn, catching Bellamy's attention. Bellamy, recognizing that this man is not a local, bursts out of the barrel and runs towards him. No ill intentions, Dak mutters to himself, observing the young man approaching him. Though the newcomer's appearance is intimidating, Dak detects no malice in his eyes and concludes he's likely just a survivor from the town. Stop staring, you crazy. Hide. You'll get killed. Bellamy grabs Dak and pulls him towards the inn. They fall not onto the hard wooden floor, but onto a soft lawn surrounded by colorful eggs. Bellamy has never seen such large eggs before and inadvertently swallows his saliva in awe. You're too reckless, Dak comments as he lifts Bellamy off him and surveys their surroundings. Realizing they haven't damaged the Pokémon eggs stored safely away by Robin, Dak assesses the situation. Bellamy looks around, bewildered. What's going on today? Feels like there's a war everywhere. Dak rubs his neck, having just rescued Monet and Sugar from a deadly altercation. From saving people from the Underworld's leader, the Don Quixote family, to now saving someone from a low-level family dispute. Dak rises, evaluating the man who tackled him. Although of average strength, Bellamy's fearsome appearance and remarkable height make him a perfect candidate for intimidating others, a useful trait in this world where power can be rapidly acquired, especially after consuming a devil fruit. Moreover, the main strength of their mystery hatchery house always lies in Pokémon, not humans. You guys, who are you? Bellamy asks, still stunned by the situation. Never mind that now. Do you want to kill all those bastards outside yourself? Dak points outside to the chaotic town. Of course, Bellamy responds, his breathing heavy with the desire for revenge. Are you ready to pay the price for that? Dak, initially hesitant to intervene, now sees no reason not to help if the town's conflict doesn't threaten their operations or harm Pokémon, their main priority. I'm just an ordinary man. I thought I'd live a quiet life, but now my life, though not worth much, is all I have. If you can help me seek revenge, I'll give you everything, Bellamy declares, ready to devote his life to his benefactor without hesitation. All right, from now on, you're a part of our mystery hatchery house. The hatred of one of our own is not an outsider's matter, Dak nods, stepping outside with Bellamy, following closely. As they prepare to confront the armed assailants, Dak reassures Bellamy, don't worry about the guns. Soon, you'll be able to ignore them too. Me? I can't. You can. Dak pats Bellamy, encouraging him. Navigating through the gunfire, they approach the conflict zone, prepared to end it not through violence, but with an overwhelming display of presence, a power even the mightiest in the seas find useful. What's your name, by the way? I'm Duck. Me? I'm Bellamy. Dak pauses, a question mark appearing above his head. Well, intercepting 3 people from the Don Quixote family in one day certainly makes for an interesting twist. End of Chapter 79. Chapter 79 bang. As Dak and Bellamy walked down a street, a crisp sound rang out from afar. A bullet struck a stone pillar not far from Dak. Dak remained calm. If necessary, Darkrai would release a dark void to absorb all incoming attacks. If Darkrai did not act, it meant the attack would not reach him. Even without Darkrai, Dak could still sense the trajectory of the bullet, invisible to the naked eye, but perceivable through his observation hockey. Take cover. In panic, Bellamy grabbed Dak, intending to drag him into a nearby alley for cover. However, Dak stood still. The 2 feuding families in this town seemed to have entered a tense phase, neither daring to show themselves too openly, opting instead to observe from the shadows. But Dak and Bellamy's appearance had suddenly made them the focus of the battlefield. That gunshot seemed to be a signal for attack. Following that, countless men in black surged out from all corners of the town. The battlefield was chaotic with few recognizable faces, making it hard to distinguish friend from foe. However, one thing was clear, Dak and Bellamy with their distinctive attire, were definitely not allies. Dak, Bellamy, seeing the approaching crowd of about 100 people, started to tremble, but he did not flee on his own and instead looked to Dak. Having agreed to become Dak's companion, he had no reason to run alone. As a delinquent, Bellamy might not know much, but he had his own principles. A man must have loyalty. Watch closely, Bellamy. Dak glanced around casually, a red light flickering through his green pupils. Buzz. The next moment, the air compressed to its limit emitted a dark red, semi-transparent hockey, spreading outwards. The menacing crowd in front of them, upon being enveloped in this dark red world, fell forward, eyes rolling back. Without exception, Dak frowned. He had restrained himself, but still saw some of the physically weaker ones bleed from the nose as they fell. With such poor physical conditioning, they might not even match the young girl alive. Bellamy was stunned, his eyes widening, his jaw dropping, and his trembling body shook even more. He struggled to turn his head towards Dak and reached out with trembling hands. Bang! Bellamy knelt down suddenly. Brother, I want to learn this. At this moment, there was no fear in Bellamy's eyes, only intense excitement. I can't teach you that. I can only teach you how to play basketball. Dak turned away, looking up at the distant sky. Bellamy was puzzled, unable to understand Dak's response. Never mind. Dak sighed. A joke he once enjoyed now only made him feel lonely and isolated. No one in this world could understand him. Aren't you the one who wants to personally seek revenge? Those guys are just knocked out. Dak walked towards a fallen crowd, picked up a knife from the ground, and handed it to Bellamy. The tasks I'll need you to do in the future might be dangerous. I need you to grow quickly, and I'll help you become stronger. Yes, brother, I will definitely do it. Bellamy stood up, took the knife, and looked at the group of men in black on the ground, clenching his fists. Weakness invites slaughter, but strength allows one to slaughter the weak. This was the lesson Bellamy had just learned from Dak. If he could become as strong as Dak, then these people wouldn't dare massacre the town. The first step, you must kill without changing your expression, leaving none of your enemies alive. Dak stood before Bellamy, hesitatingly delivering this directive. Since arriving in this world, Dak had never killed anyone, but now he was instructing someone else to kill. It wasn't that Dak couldn't do it himself. Having been in this world for over a month, he had somewhat adapted, and killing villains no longer burdened him psychologically. However, having a 19-year-old innocent suddenly kill over 100 people was tormenting for him, even though it was Bellamy's own request. But Dak would not stop his decision because of this. They weren't playing house. They were engaged in a game that could change the entire world. A game, could it really be completed without getting one's hands bloody? Or should they expect the world government to recognize the situation and surrender voluntarily? The mystery Hatchery House needed to have a decisive force, and Bellamy was the first person Dak chose for this role. Dak wouldn't teach Bellamy the professional knowledge of the Pokémon industry like he did with Robin and Monet. He would do everything possible to help Bellamy improve his combat skills. He might even unhesitatingly request a few masters from the Navy or the Whitebeard pirates for Bellamy. As for whether Bellamy had the talent, Dak knew from the moment he learned Bellamy's name. In the year 1520 of the sea calendar, Bellamy was a nobody in Mock Town, easily knocked out by Luffy, just entering the Grand Line. By 1522, with a bounty of over 100 million, he shone in the Colosseum and became a well-known bounty hunter, though still no match for Luffy, who had trained under Rayleigh for 2 years. But Bellamy, a minor character among pirates, had trained himself for 2 years without guidance. Therefore, Dak had high expectations for his potential and future. He might not compare to those with a lineage of strong warriors, but becoming a powerful figure like Zephyr was possible. Zephyr, a typical example of a civilian reaching the pinnacle at sea, was essentially the marine version of Dracul Mihawk. No wonder he commanded so much respect among veteran admirals. After taking the knife from Dak, Bellamy hesitated no more and approached the fallen man. This was not only a resolution of his past grudges, but also his initiation into the mystery Hatchery House. Despite his discomfort, he had to complete it. I'll join you. Dak took a deep breath and walked beside Bellamy. He would watch as Bellamy methodically killed each of the men, a test for Bellamy and a challenge for himself. He was a manager of the mystery Hatchery House, the future leader of the Pokémon League, a partner to all, and a trainer recognized by Darkrai and Sceptile. He couldn't always hide behind his partners. Someday, he too would need to kill. This world, if not this one, would eventually lead to a world where he must kill. The scene of slaughter was bloody and tedious. Or rather, the path of growth is bloody and tedious. He and Bellamy grew together in just a short distance they walked. From initial discomfort to numb acceptance in just a few minutes. Habituation is a terrifying thing. Even actions as severe as killing can be performed without a change in expression. Bellamy seemed particularly gifted, adapting even quicker than Dak, becoming decisive and efficient with each strike. When night fell, Dak and Bellamy sat alone by the sea. The ground behind them in the small town stained a dark red, emitting a pungent smell. Brother. Don't call me brother. We are companions, just call me Dak. No. Bellamy shook his head, stubborn about this matter. You are my brother. You can call me boss. That works too. This time Bellamy accepted, as long as he could express his admiration. Then I'll call you Bell. Okay. When the moon was high above, the two quietly returned to the mystery Hatchery House. Dak led Bellamy to the boys' dormitory, then instructed Robin, still reading, to explain the shop and Pokémon matters to Bellamy the next morning. As for Dak, his mood was complex, unable to sleep, so he headed to the workshop, planning to study the Pokémon Pokédex further. When Dak opened the door to the workshop, he saw Monet sitting at the desk, writing and drawing something. Dak. Monet turned her head and smiled warmly. Welcome back. This much effort. Dak scratched his head with a finger. Monet was just a girl with no combat ability, unlike him and Robin, who could work till midnight without feeling tired. It's very late, go rest. Dak walked over and glanced at the content Monet was writing on the paper. They were standard business tactics like card discounts, advanced reservations, home delivery, etc. But some ideas inspired Dak. Like the idea of an auction, Dak could offer items not available outside an auction. People who purchased the Pokémon Pokédex would become VIP of the Mystery Hatchery House, the auction ticket, a proof of financial capability to participate in the auction. A great idea, indeed. Though rare items must be sold at a fair price. The mystery shop wasn't just about rare items. There were also many common items, never seen in this world before, like Pokémon evolution stones and certain metals with special effects, also plentiful in the mystery shop. This is a good idea. Dak pointed at the paper. Really? If it helps, that's great. Monet seemed energized, smiling happily. I'm not very tired yet. Let me think a bit more. I seem to have some ideas now. Let's do it together. Okay. End of chapter 80. Chapter 80, A New Day Has Dawned. With Iceberg, Monet, Sugar, and Bellamy joining as new staff members over the past 2 days and not having interacted much yet, Dak has called a meeting for everyone in the Hatchery House. Besides introductions, the purpose of the meeting is to understand each other's roles and how they can assist each other in daily tasks. The inaugural internal meeting of the Pokémon League is being held in Dak's bedroom. There's simply no space left in the shop due to the 400 Pokémon eggs, and the little ones also need some room to move, so everyone has to make do with Dak's bedroom. At this moment, everyone is sitting cross-legged on an oval carpet. Present are Bon, Smoochum, Robin, Miltank, Sugar, Monet, Iceberg, Bellamy, Sceptile, Darkrai, and Dak himself. This is the current staff of the Mystery Hatchery House. Cough, cough. First, let me introduce our staff and their roles. Dak stands to draw everyone's attention. Everyone claps respectfully, especially Bellamy, whose applause thunders loudly, bothering Miltank next to him, who quickly covers her ears. Dak then begins to explain each person's role and title. Bon Clay, External Secretary, responsible for handling Dak's external affairs and representing the Mystery Hatchery House in negotiations with other organizations. His next task is to help Iceberg set up a branch and maintain contact with the Navy's branch in Water 7. Robin, Internal Secretary, primarily takes care of new staff and young Pokémon. And due to her extensive knowledge, she acts as Dak's strategist along with Funky. She is second only to Dak in Pokémon knowledge. Her next task is to help Dak train Pokémon that have matured beyond their juvenile phase and learn skills. Iceberg, future manager of Water 7 Branch, League Craftsman. Due to his calm personality and business acumen, Dak plans to entrust him with all future branches in the pirate world. Iceberg is also tasked with helping the League construct various facilities. His next job is to build a branch, continue working with Tom on the sea train, and hone his craftsmanship. Monet, researcher, future Pokémon professor. Her job is to collaborate with Dak on researching the Pokémon Pokédex. Sugar, security officer, future Miss June Shah. Her role is to resolve disputes among Pokémon in the shop and maintain order within the Hatchery House. Bellamy, prosecutor, future representative of League's force. His job is to become stronger. Dak will find him mentors from the Whitebeard pirates and the Navy, prioritizing the Whitebeard side. Sceptile, branch defender, external public face of the Hatchery House. His job is to guard the branches. Darkrai, personal bodyguard of the League leader, the silent guardian shadow of the League. His job is to protect Dak. Now that we've found heads for various departments of our League, the only position we still need to fill is medical staff, which can't be rushed. My goal is to create a transcendent power beyond the world government, the Pokémon League, to usher this world into an era of peace and adventure, and a foundational coexistence of humans and Pokémon. Dak declares his ambition and vision openly for the first time after the introductions. Such a future cannot be achieved by me alone. I need everyone's help. Please work with me to forge a new era for Pokémon. Yes, Bellamy roars enthusiastically, jumping up and raising his arms in cheer. Most Miltank and Smoochum are startled and quickly burrow into Robin and Bond's arms. Robin hugs the soft, chubby Miltank, smiling at Bellamy. She's not annoyed, but rather happy that there's someone like Bellamy in the Hatchery House. Aside from him, the others seem to have calmer and quieter personalities. Sugar is quite lively, but she's just a little girl, not as energetic as Bellamy. Hey, Bellamy, that's enough. You're too loud. Bond, holding Smoochum, gives Bellamy an exasperated look. He's noticed that Bellamy is clearly Dak's fanboy. He'd cheer enthusiastically for anything Dak said. The boss is right. Bellamy sheepishly scratches his head and gives a thumbs up. Iceberg smiles subtly. Initially, he was apprehensive about meeting his unseen companions, but now he appreciates the atmosphere. The shop is full of people like him, new to the Hatchery House, and everyone seems easy to get along with. Especially Bellamy, who reminds him of Flam in a way. The days ahead are long, and will indeed be busy for a while, but should get easier after some time. Let's all keep pushing for a bit longer. Dak ends the first internal meeting of the Pokémon League with these encouraging words. Of course, this is just a formality. The Pokémon League hasn't officially been established yet. When it is, it will be announced to the world, likely spread far and wide by Morgans. By then, many will likely be interested in the Pokémon League, wanting to join and become part of it, becoming the first to reap the benefits of the new era. After the meeting, everyone goes back to their respective tasks. The progress on the Pokémon Pokédex is slow, mainly because the Hatchery House's business is still limited, and there aren't many special services suitable for VIP. Dak has thought deeply about the reasons. The space is too small, there aren't enough Pokémon outside, and they haven't matured enough yet. The latter issue will be resolved once the branches are built, but growth will take time. The former, however, is a major problem. They lack the territory needed to develop various projects Dak has envisioned. For instance, Dak has long planned for the Pokémon School and Pokémon League buildings. He's reluctant to place such critical facilities in the outside world. He wants to add the shop's void rules to these buildings. More precisely, the power suppression effect. But to place these two buildings inside the shop, there isn't enough space. After much deliberation, Dak finds a solution in the mystery shop. Now, all Dak needs to do is wait for the 2 billion belly from the Navy, and he can purchase his first fully leveled legendary Pokémon. The solution lies in the special ability of this legendary Pokémon. Darkray's exclusive skill is Dark Void, but his real special ability allows him to induce nightmares or even control them, although there isn't much use for this ability at the moment. This skill might have more utility in a world like Naruto's, where illusion techniques are common, but it's still unclear if illusions and dreams can be connected. They're both related to the mental realm, however. Based on Dak's observations in the mystery shop of those legendary Pokémon summaries, he's made a startling discovery. That is, in a mystery shop, if a legendary Pokémon's ability becomes ineffective due to the current world's characteristics, the system will patch the Pokémon so its original ability can still be used. The strength of this patch will only be known once it's summoned. It's because of this patch that Dak has set his sights on a particular legendary Pokémon, Giratina, also known as the Ghost Dragon, a dual-type ghost and dragon Pokémon, and a deity on the same level as the temporal god Dialga and the spatial god Palkia. In the Pokémon world, the master of the distortion world, a creature so tempestuous that not even Arceus is spared its wrath. Giratina's combat prowess is formidable, but its special ability as the master of the distortion world allows it to maintain its origin for me within the distortion world, even without a Griseous orb. Palkia, a spatial god, can enter the distortion world, but his intrusion only invites a beating from Giratina, and even with an adamant orb to enter his origin for me, it's merely less embarrassing. In the distortion world and outside, Giratina's combat capabilities aren't on the same level. It could be said that the existence of the distortion world itself, due to the combat boost it provides to Giratina, is considered part of Giratina's special ability. However, in the world of One Piece, there is no concept of the distortion world. This means Giratina's special ability is ineffective, and the system's patch is compensation with a mini-world, where only Giratina has the ability to open the gateway to this mini-world. In this world, Giratina can revert to its origin for me. This mini-world follows laws similar to those of the Pokémon world, and the mystery shop does not provide more specific details about its contents. But these details alone are enough for Dak to make his choice. Previously prioritized Pokémon like Kyogre or Lugia are now put on hold. Giratina is his top choice. With it, their Pokémon League can have a secure headquarters, a location for the Pokémon School, a venue for the Pokémon Conference, and an environment for breeding Pokémon, all secured. Moreover, the combat power Giratina could unleash in this world might not necessarily be weaker than that of Kyogre or Lugia. End of Chapter 81. Chapter 81. Upon discovering Giratina, Dak's mind overflowed with plans for the Pokémon League, particularly with the VIP benefits for the Pokémon Pokédex, which he began conceptualizing and researching immediately. About 5 days later, after intense efforts by Dak and Monet working overtime, the Pokémon Pokédex version 1.0 was finally completed. The prototype, coded as 001, was a red Pokémon Pokédex owned by Bond. Apart from the basic Pokémon data, it included special VIP benefits, accessible via a VIP benefits icon on the Pokédex's homepage. 1. Eligibility to participate in the Mystery Hatchery House auctions. 2. The privilege to bring up to 10 people for a tour of Pokémon Island annually, except during special periods. 3. Priority booking for hotels and seating at events on Pokémon Island, with access to the island 3 days before other guests. 4. Lifetime free access to Pokémon recovery services at Pokémon centers worldwide. 5. Free admission to Pokémon School and complimentary educational materials. Further benefits to be updated free of charge. These 5 benefits constitute the VIP treatment exclusive to Pokémon Pokédex owners. With these services added, the total cost of manufacturing one Pokédex came to 1,000 magical coins, equivalent to 10 million belly. Dak planned to sell each unit for 100 million belly, a 10-fold markup. This price was considered reasonable given the lifetime benefits it offered, with potential for additional perks in the future. Ongoing updates and upgrade for the Pokédex would be covered by the Hatchery House, a cost taken on by the business which, although minor, could accumulate significantly over decades. To prevent future losses, Dak removed a proposed benefit, 10% off all services at the Hatchery House, from the list. Dak was careful to ensure these VIP benefits wouldn't create an unfair advantage by turning members into pay-to-win players, distancing them significantly from others. Instead, these benefits were designed to enhance their experience and prestige, making them feel special and more willing to invest in the Pokédex. Sigh, we finally completed the development. Dak and Monet, in the workshop, looked at the Pokémon Pokédex they held, relieved. Especially Monet, an ordinary girl. She had been working from early morning till late at night alongside Dak, and dark circles had formed under her eyes from exhaustion. She was truly determined to assist Dak. So, we can start selling the Pokédex now, right? Monet slumped on a chair, her long green hair disheveled. Not yet. Let's wait a couple of weeks until the 400 Pokémon eggs from the Navy are about to hatch. By then, they'll likely need the Pokédex urgently. I need to check on the Pokémon in the meantime. Dak still had a few concerns. For instance, the disposition of the upcoming Giratina. In the Pokémon world, Giratina was known to be temperamental and not easy to deal with, possessing a strong territorial instinct. Anyone who wandered into its distortion world would likely get a rough welcome. If this Giratina shared the same traits, it could be problematic. While it might allow Dak into the newly formed world due to their natural affinity, it might not welcome other beings. Dak considered ways to persuade Giratina. He could force Giratina to obey through system constraints, but he preferred not to do that. Respecting the will of Pokémon was essential to earn their genuine loyalty and cooperation. Even if Giratina allowed others into its realm, the exact nature of that world was uncertain. If it was a complete replica of the distortion world from the Pokémon universe, significant alterations might be needed. Dak. Monet looked at Dak, hesitating slightly. Monet, if calling me by my name makes you uncomfortable, feel free to use a different title. I just don't want there to be a sense of distance between us, which is why I asked you to use my name. Dak sensed Monet's difficulty in addressing him directly. Each person has their unique traits, like Bonclay's loyalty and Bellamy's admiration. For Monet, it was her profound respect and extreme loyalty to her leader. In the original narrative, Monet always addressed Doflamingo with respect as young master, and she was the first executive willing to die for him, likely due to Doflamingo saving her and Sugar in their original timeline. Now that Dak has taken on the hero's role, Monet sees no reason to treat him differently. However, it was this respect that made it difficult for her to call Dak by his name directly, similar to Bellamy's excessive admiration and indebtedness, placing themselves beneath Dak. Monet pondered, unable to decide on a suitable title. Belle calls me boss. Maybe you could do the same? I don't like being called manager or boss. Dak suggested an alternative for Monet. That doesn't sound good. Unexpectedly, Monet rejected the suggestion. Dak had thought of her as compliant, someone who would accept whatever was said. What would you like to call me then? Leader. Monet recalled the recent meeting Dak had led, then proposed a title. The head of the Pokémon League would be the leader. Isn't that a bit too grand? Dak was slightly embarrassed, but couldn't suppress a smile. Of course not. Leader Soma. Monet quickly picked up on Dak's fondness for the title. Let's keep it low-key. Dak quickly waved his hand and then fled the workshop. With the Pokémon Pokédex issue resolved, he could now focus on training Pokémon, a task that had fallen on Robin these past few days. Dak didn't favor one over the others. He held high hopes for each Pokémon in the shop. Robin, how's the branch coming along? While watching the little ones practice, Dak also asked Robin, who had been handling communications with Bon and Iceberg while he was preoccupied. It's going smoothly. We should be open in about 2 days. People in Water 7 have noticed the developments at the North Shore, and the crowd, there is growing, awaiting the Hatchery House's opening. It's getting rather chaotic. Robin, wearing glasses that added to her intellectual appearance, reported, but the Navy has stepped in to maintain order. Occasionally, Sceptile takes a stroll outside and drags a Sea King from the nearby sea, which quiets everyone down significantly. Dak nodded. Sceptile wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, so this tactic likely came from Bond's advice. At that moment, the shop door opened and a regular customer walked in. Mihawk, it's been a while since I last saw you. What brings you here today? Dak greeted the newcomer with a smile, also noticing the Psyduck in Mihawk's arms. The old Mihawk wouldn't casually carry anything around, let alone a plump duck. It seemed Mihawk and Psyduck had grown quite close. Dak, it seems Psyduck is sick. Mihawk, always stoic, cradled the Psyduck without any coldness in his actions. He didn't even glance at the Pokémon eggs scattered across the lawn, but went straight to Dak, presenting the Psyduck. Dak was surprised. He hadn't expected a Pokémon to fall ill so soon, given the current small number of Pokémon. Let me have a look. Robin put down her Pokédex and removed her glasses to come over. Sugar, who had been training with the Pokémon, also paused to look at the Psyduck in Mihawk's arms. Quack! Psyduck noticed its surroundings and weakly waved a chubby hand, greeting everyone. Its voice was hoarse, and a bit of mucus dripped from its nostrils, quickly sucked back in. The reflex to snort mucus back was quite rapid. Or rather, it didn't require mental effort, being more of a bodily instinct. Common cold. It wasn't a serious issue and was easy to resolve. Dak could quickly tell. How long has it been? First day. No big problem. Dak nodded, impressed by Mihawk's sensitivity in noticing Psyduck's discomfort on the first day. Honestly, had Mihawk not mentioned Psyduck's illness, Dak might not have noticed right away, as the little duck always seemed so oblivious, making it hard to spot any issues. Unfortunately, though not serious, a cold can't be treated with a recovery device. Recovery device performs strong physical recovery for Pokémon, quickly repairing physical injuries sustained in battle, an essential machine in Pokémon centers. That was the specific function when the recovery device first appeared. The device could restore the energy Psyduck lost due to the cold, temporarily improving its condition, but it wasn't a permanent solution. This was why, despite having recovery devices, Pokémon centers still needed Nurse Joys, Chanseys, and some surgeons. It was also why Dak was eager to recruit medical staff. Now, Dak had to handle it himself. Treating simple illnesses was part of a breeder's essential skills, and the common cold fell into that category, so Dak could manage it. In a Chapter 82, Dak rummaged through the studio for some berries he had previously extracted from a berry gift pack. He also found a medicinal herb from the magical shop, which had been used by Iris and Dent in the original story to treat an injury of a Pokémon. He crushed these ingredients into a paste and handed it to Mihawk. Is this medicine? Mihawk looked at the small bowl of deep green paste, sniffed it without detecting any foul smell. It smelled tart and sweet, probably not bad tasting. Mihawk made this judgment based on his sense of smell. He then took a small spoon, intending to feed Psyduck, but the Pokémon seemed resistant, pushing the spoon away and turning its head. The medicine actually doesn't taste very good. Pokémon have a more sensitive sense of smell, and they can detect it, Dak explained to a puzzled Mihawk. The medicine was indeed not very palatable. In the original story, after eating it, the Pokémon's already grim expression worsened, although the medication was effective and quickly made it feel much better. Eat. Mihawk was succinct, gently patting Psyduck's belly. Reluctantly, the little one opened its beak. Quack! After swallowing a spoonful, Psyduck visibly grimaced, clutching its head in discomfort. Bear with it. Mihawk continued feeding. Here, this might help. Sugar, standing nearby, pulled a candy from her pocket and handed it to Mihawk. My sister always uses these when she gives me medicine. Good idea. Mihawk nodded, taking the candy from Sugar. He learned yet another trick for child care, a skill that was utterly useless to his former self, but now proved valuable. After Psyduck reluctantly finished the medicine, Mihawk turned back to Dak. Pokémon are quite robust. Usually, one dose of medicine is enough for recovery. It should feel better by tomorrow. Although Mihawk didn't speak, Dak understood what he meant. Perhaps due to their improved relationship and newfound understanding, Dak could now guess Mihawk's thoughts easily. The man was surprisingly straightforward. All right, how much do I owe you? 50 berry. Dak paused. He hadn't yet planned a pricing structure for medical services at the Pokémon Center. But Mihawk's question prompted Dak to start thinking. In the realm of medical care, Dak decided not to profit. Future use of Pokemon Center recovery machines would only charge a nominal fee for electricity, 500 belly, equivalent to the price of 2 years ago for a chopper or a cotton candy. For other illnesses, only the cost of materials would be charged. All other fees would be waived. Okay. Mihawk nodded. However, he didn't hurry away, but instead turned to look around the shop. At that moment, he noticed the plethora of eggs suddenly filling the store. It was a dizzying sight. How about it? Want to buy an egg? Dak nudged Mihawk, inquiring if he was interested. Maybe in a few days after Psyduck gets better. Mihawk indeed contemplated getting another Pokemon. Not to train a sword master capable of defeating him, as before, but because he didn't want Psyduck to be lonely. Mihawk often practiced intense swordplay, and Psyduck would just sit there, staring blankly. Mihawk wondered if Psyduck felt bored. Where have you been staying recently? Pokemon usually have strong constitutions and shouldn't fall ill so easily unless there's been a significant environmental change. Dak voiced another of his lingering questions. I'll come with you. Seeing Mihawk hesitate, Dak decided to accompany him to check things out. All right, Mihawk nodded. Having Dak come along might help determine the cause of Psyduck's illness. As Dak left the shop with Mihawk, he shivered the moment he stepped outside. The sky was snowing. They were in a small town blanketed in snow, where Mihawk resided in one of the houses. It was hard to tell whose unlucky pirate's house it was. Where is this? Somewhere on the Grand Line's Winter Islands. Not sure exactly. Mihawk shrugged, never one to keep track of his locations. Psyduck might have gotten cold. Dak rubbed his forehead and looked at Psyduck. Although Psyduck seemed oblivious, his body had already reacted. As a water-type Pokemon, Psyduck had a high tolerance for cold, so even if it felt chilly, it wouldn't show obvious discomfort. The only way to tell if Psyduck felt cold was to check its palms. Since Psyduck always held its head, its palms didn't touch the outside world, making them sensitive to temperature changes. Dak grabbed Psyduck's hand, holding its head, and saw a faint redness in the palm. It wasn't obvious, but it was there. He explained Psyduck's condition to Mihawk, who gained new insight. If you're cold, how could Psyduck not be? Especially since it's not an ice-type Pokemon. Dak pulled off the scarf around Mihawk's neck and wrapped it around Psyduck's neck. The little one didn't respond much, but its expression clearly showed it felt more comfortable. I see. Mihawk, looking at Psyduck, nodded. Thanks. No problem. Just be more careful next time. I need to go back. Dak, feeling frozen, headed back to the shop. But as soon as he returned, Sugar came running up, her big eyes looking up at him imploringly. She was smart, using her cuteness and youth to charm the adults. Dak, what's up? I want to go out and play in the snow. Sugar looked at Dak pitifully. She had been inside the shop for many days. Dadan, EV Smooch. The other little ones followed Sugar, showing various expressions to Dak. Dak suddenly realized that the little ones hadn't been out for a while. For those who had experienced the outside world, staying in all the time must be tough. Come to think of it, none of you have seen snow before. So today, let's have a snowball fight. Dak smacked his forehead, regretting his oversight, but quickly waved his hand, planning to take everyone out. Sugar, go call your sister. Robin, help me get Bon, Iceberg, and Sceptile back. Everyone's off today. Let's all go out and play. Boss is right. Bellamy's voice came first, followed by his appearance. Bellamy had been training in the men's dormitory, but his voice carried through the door before he burst out. About 10 minutes later, Mihawk, who had stayed to watch Psyduck build a snowman, turned his head to see Dak leading a group towards him. Whack! Before Mihawk could see clearly who was approaching, a soft snowball hit him. He could dodge, but that would mean letting Psyduck get hit. Mihawk just watched as the snowball hit his hat, and the little girl next to Dak flashed a mischievous smile. Mihawk turned back to the diligently snowman building Psyduck, thinking it was much cuter. Arriving on the snowy ground, Dak didn't need to give any orders. The Pokemon spontaneously started frolicking. Some were having snowball fights, others building snowmen, and some chased each other around in the snow. Iceberg and Sceptile were stunned. They thought they were called for something urgent, but it turned out just to be for fun. Now, one preoccupied with the sea train and the other wanting to sleep in the small forest inside the branch. Iceberg massaged his temples, but then he smiled, deciding to join in the fun since he was already there. It had been a long time since he'd played so freely. As for Sceptile, after getting hit by a stray snowball, he cursed and walked off. He hated the cold weather. After a day of activities, everyone returned to their tasks. It was on the third morning that Bond brought news. The Water 7 branch was completed. So was the Navy's base. Water 7's North Shore was overflowing with people, and all the major shipyards and shops were closed as a huge crowd planned to buy a Pokémon. Dak knew they were eager, but he couldn't rush things. He had to settle his business with the Navy first and get those 2 billion belly, not just for Giratina and the special ability seeds, but also because he didn't have enough magical coins to purchase the large number of Pokemon eggs needed to sell to the people of Water 7. Robin, have Bond organize a pre-order event at the North Shore before opening the shop. Record how many people want to buy Pokemon eggs, and make sure to ask whether they want a family companion or a helper and get an idea of their price expectations. Dak gave his instructions. He needed a clear inventory of how many and what quality of Pokemon eggs to buy from the magical shop. In the days to come, their mystery Hatchery House might earn money quickly, but spending it would be just as fast. Especially on Pokemon Island, no matter the situation. It was expected to require significant investment from Dak. Housing the Pokemon species, there would cost magical coins. Building various facilities, there would cost belly to hire workers. And who knows what else might need funding. Dak resolved to save where he could, not skimp on necessary expenses, and absolutely not waste a penny where it wasn't needed. End of chapter 83. Chapter 83, after the branch store was completed, Dak had not yet had a chance to visit the Water 7 area to see how things were going when the Navy, eager to proceed, sent someone to prepare for the reception of the 400 eggs. The visitor was none other than Sengoku himself. Thanks to the pocket tokens, it was extremely easy for the Navy to reach the main store of the Mystery Hatchery House, unlike other visitors who had to go through the formality of visiting the branch in Water 7. Accompanying Sengoku were 2 others, Zephyr and Kazan, the 2 admirals who would be responsible for distributing the Pokemon eggs. Naturally, Zephyr had his Growlithe by his side. As the 3 of them entered the hatchery and saw the lawn full of colorful eggs, they were simultaneously stunned. Then, each displayed a completely different expression. Sengoku's face split into a wide grin. Zephyr raised his palm, seemingly curious about the suppressed power, and Kazan somewhat headache-inducingly ran his hands through his curly hair. Kazan was already fretting about whom to distribute the Pokemon eggs to, a problematic issue indeed, considering his slight indecision. Unlike the humans, Growlithe's focus was distinctly different. The first thing he did upon entering the hatchery was to dash towards Dak, who expertly grabbed him by the nape of his neck. Phew! It seems I still haven't lost my touch, Dak thought, relieved as his body reacted instinctively. Bark! Growlithe didn't seem upset. Instead, he wagged his tail and tried to lick Dak's face. Seeing Growlithe, the other Pokemon ran over to greet their friend, and soon enough, Growlithe was tumbling around on the lawn with the group, forgetting all about Dak. I've been waiting for you, Admiral Sengoku. It's been a while. I've missed you. Dak swallowed his emotional tears to prevent them from betraying his feelings. Oomph. Sengoku didn't believe a word. He knew exactly what Dak was really missing. Without much ado, he pulled out his pocket token and handed it to Dak, loaded with sufficient funds. Seeing 40 billion belly vanish in an instant had left Sengoku shocked during their initial transaction. Increasingly aware of the mystery surrounding the hatchery and the truth in the words Tsuru had passed to him. The future would indeed belong to Pokemon. All right, the 20 billion belly has been confirmed. You can now take the 400 eggs. Please take good care of these children. I entrust them to you. Dak swiped over the pocket token, and the 20 billion belly converted into 200,000 magical coins flowed into Dak's system balance. Even Dak couldn't help but feel a bit thrilled at that moment, but he quickly composed himself to attend to his customer. Don't worry, whenever you want to inspect them, you're welcome to. The people I choose won't be failures. Zephyr tilted his chin up confidently, secure in his judgment. Also, I'll pay for Growlive myself. Tell me your price. Bark. Growlive looked up with intelligent eyes, confident in his worth. Oh, finally gained the recognition of Admiral Zephyr. Good job, Growlive. Dak smiled and rubbed Growlive's fluffy ears. Then Dak pondered what price to set for Growlive. Considering all aspects, aptitude, species, appearance, personality, traits, Growlive was a top-tier choice and also bore an Eastern aura. Ideally, Dak could ask for 200 to 300 million belly. However, initially, Growlive had chosen Zephyr unilaterally. Zephyr hadn't wanted Growlive at first, and Dak had essentially forced the pairing. Though Zephyr had come to accept and even cherish Growlive, this didn't change Dak's somewhat forceful sales tactic at the beginning. Considering this, Dak didn't set the price too high. 150 million belly. This was only 50 million more than the egg stage, a relatively low price for Growlive. No problem. Zephyr didn't hesitate, turning back to retrieve the funds and returning within 5 minutes with 150 million belly. This was his personal purchase, independent of the Navy, as Sengoku really couldn't afford to spend much more, leaving Zephyr to foot the bill himself. Another 15,000 magical coins entered the account. Then came the process of transporting the eggs. Sengoku had prepared 100 baby carriages outside, each able to hold 4 eggs. The transportation process wasn't slow, and it took about a quarter of an hour to move all the eggs out of the shop. The mystery hatchery house was once again empty, returning to its previous spacious and quiet state. Admiral Sengoku, these eggs will hatch in about 2 weeks. Dak didn't forget to remind Sengoku of this detail. Understood. Sengoku nodded, then, with a swirl of his cape, turned to leave. And, I'll try to pick good people for those children. Kazan left a somewhat awkward assurance before departing, a kind of promise. Thank you. That would be appreciated. As the Navy's significant order was completed, Dak now had the funds to engage in other activities. He now had a balance of 228,900 magical coins in his system. With many tasks at hand, Dak felt a sense of urgency. Robin, check on Bond's progress with the inventory. Icebug, take a trip to Water 7 and purchase some display shells for the branch. I plan to sell some goods there. Our services at the hatchery are too monotonous. Dak was busily delegating tasks. After settling his immediate plans, he opened his magical shop. Giratina, shiny 1 million magical coins. Dak's eyes sparkled as he stared at the display. Discovering that he could choose whether the Pokémon were shiny without affecting the price delighted him. The normal color of Giratina was a mix of gold, red, and gray with black wings. The shiny version of Giratina was a blend of silver, blue, and cream with black wings. The normal Giratina looked like a tyrant, full of malevolence. The shiny Giratina resembled a noble king, radiating a regal air. It was like comparing Hercules and Gilgamesh from the Holy Grail War. Use the 90% off coupon for Pokémon purchases. Giratina, shiny 100,000 magical coins. Purchase. At that moment, Dak could hardly care about the flow of magical coins. He was fixed on the Giratina displayed in a magical shop. He watched as Giratina disappeared from the shop listing. A legendary Pokémon could only be purchased once, and after this transaction, it would never be available for purchase again. As the 100,000 magical coins vanished from Dak's account, Giratina did not appear in the shop. Due to the large size of Giratina, it has been placed in the Origin World. A door to the Origin World has been left in your bedroom, where you can enter at your discretion. Informed by the system, Dak's excitement temporarily cooled. He had to plan his remaining magical coins carefully. Originally, Dak planned to use another 100,000 magical coins to purchase a special ability seed, but he couldn't make that purchase yet. The demand for Pokémon eggs from the clients in Water 7 was still unknown. Spending all his magical coins now might leave him unable to purchase necessary eggs from the magical shop later. This was also why Dax so eagerly wanted Giratina. With the Origin World, he could cultivate his own Pokémon species and create something similar to the Safari Zone. Unlike in the animations and games where Pokémon are caught through battles in the Safari Zone, here the acquisition of Pokémon would be through personal charm or over time, winning their hearts rather than capturing them through force. This would significantly reduce the future need for Pokémon eggs, decreasing Dak's need to frequently purchase eggs from the magical shop. Dak also needed to reserve some magical coins for buying items. For example, Moo Moo milk and potions that could be sold directly at the branch needed to be bought. Additionally, the Pokémon block kit and berries could be used to produce large quantities of Pokémon blocks in different flavors, which could also be sold at the branch. Items like evolutionary stones and auxiliary tools would be sold at auction later. People outside didn't need these items yet. There were many ways to spend money, and Dak felt somewhat overwhelmed by the calculations. He would have to spend all night figuring out how much to spend on what. Phew. All right, let's check out the origin world. Having tentatively planned his immediate activities, Dak followed the system's instructions and found the door to the origin world. There it is. In his bedroom's en-suite bathroom, Dak was relieved to see the door wasn't in the toilet, but on the innermost wall. It resembled a mirror-like surface of water that reflected nothing. Tentatively, Dak reached out his hand, causing ripples as it passed through the surface. Then he stepped through. The transition was seamless, without dizziness or disorientation, just a sudden change of scenery. Here, Dak gazed at his surroundings with wide eyes. He was in a vast plain that felt like a flat terrain in Minecraft. Looking up, the sky was dotted with leisurely clouds and a sun that was bright without being harsh. A gentle breeze carrying a hint of fresh grass wafted across the area, coming from nowhere in particular. In the distance stood a massive, squat tree that only appeared short because of its lush, broad girth. It was at least 200 to 300 meters tall, like a world tree supporting this origin world. Fruits could vaguely be seen among the thick branches, though their exact nature was unclear from this distance. Perfect. Dak took a deep breath and strolled through the expansive plains. This origin world was absolutely perfect. It wasn't chaotic like the distortion world, nor did it have any uneven terrain. Dak felt like he was in creative mode, ready to spend time reshaping this world to his liking. End of chapter. 84. Chapter 84 System. How big is this world? 100 million square kilometers. What? Dak couldn't remain calm hearing this number. He stood stunned, looking around the vast plains. The Earth's surface area is 510 million square kilometers, of which 148 million are land. That meant the origin world was about a fifth of Earth in size, or 2/3 of Earth's land area. No wonder Dak was shocked. This plain is 100 million square kilometers. Dak swallowed hard, unable to comprehend the scale. No, the land area you are standing on equals the hatchery's area multiplied by 1 million, totaling 3.8 million square kilometers. Beyond this land lies the ocean. The land area will expand with the expansion of the hatchery, up to a maximum of 50 million square kilometers. 3.8 million square kilometers. Dak's homeland had an area of 9.8 million square kilometers, meaning the land under his feet was about a quarter the size of it. When Dak looked at the plains again, his eyes were filled with bewilderment. How to develop such vast land? It seemed impossible to utilize all of it. Is this continent only composed of plains? This land follows the same template as the hatchery's hall: plains, a single tree, and a lake. If you require additional terrains or buildings, please make purchases from the new module in the magical shop. Same template. Dak pondered the phrase, then suddenly remembered a crucial question. System, how do we apply the store suppression rules to this origin world? The origin world inherently includes a more stringent void suppression rule, which you cannot feel, applying to all creatures except the host and Pokémon, including the staff of the magical hatchery. Is that so? Then I'm relieved. Hearing the system's answer, Dak felt a weight lift from his chest. He had been concerned about unruly individuals from the world of One Piece entering the Pokémon Island and causing trouble. With this suppression rule in place, even if more of such individuals appear in the future, Dak wouldn't need to worry. He wouldn't even need to intervene personally. The members or Pokémon living here could easily handle these troublemakers. Now Dak had the time to check out the new module mentioned by the system. Magical Shop. Indeed, There was a new module named Pokémon Island, the name Dak had chosen for this world. It contained many items that had not been available in the magical shop before. Volcano terrain, 1 square meter. 1 magical coin, snowy mountain terrain, 1 square meter. 1 magical coin terrains like forests, plateaus, rocky mountains, lakes, and flower beds were generally priced at 1 magical coin per square meter. Dak thought these were the main items, but the real key items came later. Sinnoh League headquarters, 10,000 magical coins, Pokémon Grand Festival venue. 50,000 magical coins, city-level Pokémon Center. 1,000 magical coins, Wallace Cup venue. 10,000 magical coins, Professor Oak's research lab. 1,000 magical coins. Dak nearly drooled seeing these buildings. They were exact replicas from the Pokémon world, though they didn't include any related equipment, machinery, or office supplies, which Dak needed to purchase separately. Dak had originally thought it might take decades to build these structures in his plan, but the system had saved him a tremendous amount of trouble. Now Iceberg wouldn't need to stay busy on Pokémon Island. He could focus on the sea projects. As for Dak, he just needed to focus on making money. Could this be the system's real purpose? Dak suddenly realized the true aim of the system. All these conveniences were for him to focus on making money. The system aims to cultivate the host into the greatest Pokémon breeder across all worlds. Earning money is secondary. The main goal is for the host to have more time to complete main quests and improve breeding skills. Okay, I believe you. Dak nodded, thoroughly convinced. Overall, acquiring Giratina was a huge win for Dak. The inclusion of this origin world and the new module in the system were perfect. The only downside was the lack of money. What he thought was a substantial amount of 120,000 magical coins now seemed insufficient. Turning this world into what I hope for might not be feasible with the wealth from just the world of One Piece alone. Dak sighed and shook his head. He wondered how the world would look if he could divert all the money from the celestial dragons and the world government, probably totaling hundreds of billions of berries. As Dak sat down, contemplating how to make money, a massive shadow gradually enveloped him. Is it getting dark? Dak frowned as he came to his senses, but suddenly realized he had forgotten something important. Why did he enter Pokémon Island initially? Roar! A deep sound came from behind Dak in the sky. Instinctively turning around, Dak froze on the spot. He remembered. He was there to meet his beloved Giratina. At that moment, Giratina floated quietly in the sky in front of Dak, its eerie blue eyes steadily gazing at him. As a mythical Pokémon, controlling its size was trivial, depending purely on its will. P.S. Here, the sizes from the games are not followed, as they are too low. If movies and animations can enlarge these divine creatures, so can we. So what's the smallest size for a mythical Pokémon like Giratina in origin form? At least 6.9 meters. And the largest? No one has ever studied this. If asked before, Dak would have said he didn't know, but now, if asked, he would say at least 200 meters. Hello, Dak greeted the origin form Giratina in front of him. The immense body completely cast Dak in shadow, and conservatively estimating, it stretched about 200 meters. 200 meters was certainly long, a titan in the Pokémon world, but in the world of One Piece, it was still just a baby. In the deep seas of One Piece or in the calm belts, sea kings several hundred to thousands of meters long were common. Of course, Giratina might not win in size, but its combat power was not something those sea kings could touch. Roar! Giratina made a sound that Dak couldn't quite understand. Dak tilted his head. Due to low compatibility and intimacy with Giratina, he couldn't yet understand its language. Dak was a bit flustered. Giratina was rumored to be extremely violent and brutal, more so than Yveltal, and it was because of its rebellion against Arceus that it was banished to the Distortion world. Although Giratina wouldn't hurt him, thanks to the initial intimacy set by the system, if it had a really bad temper, many of Dak's plans might be obstructed. Just as Dak was anxiously scratching his head, Giratina shrank. In Dak's view, Giratina became smaller and smaller until it was only 7 meters long, probably its smallest limit. Roar! Dak shook his head, puzzled. He wasn't sure if he had heard it wrong. but it seemed like Giratina had just made a sound that was somewhat coquettish. Whine. Giratina seemed anxious as Dak remained motionless. It pushed its head forward, nudging into Dak's arms. It's important to note that Giratina's head had horns. Dak couldn't withstand it and nearly spat out blood. Okay, good boy. Suppressing the pain in his abdomen, Dak reached out to pet Giratina's head. Now he was sure the legendary Giratina was indeed being affectionate. The earlier sound wasn't an illusion. His own Giratina was a bit strange. But that was good. Dak liked this friendly and gentle Giratina, as long as it wasn't a violent creature. Darkrai, emerging from Dak's shadow at that moment, eyed Giratina warily. When Giratina had approached, Darkrai was ready to intervene, but hearing Giratina's sound had shocked him. Darkrai glanced at Dak. If he hadn't misunderstood, Giratina seemed to have called Dak Daddy. Why? As Darkrai stealthily observed Giratina, the legendary Pokémon noticed his presence. Giratina's blue eyes rolled, and it charged at Dak's shadow. Darkrai didn't understand what Giratina was doing and quickly retreated into Dak's shadow. But to his surprise, Giratina followed, pulling him out. He couldn't resist. Darkrai was shocked. He couldn't resist this Giratina at all. Their powers weren't even on the same level. Roar! Giratina dropped Darkrai to the ground, growled, then shielded Dak behind it. Wait! Giratina, this is Darkrai, my partner. He has protected me many times, and he will be your partner too. Seeing that Giratina seemed to have mistaken Darkrai for a nefarious enemy, Dak quickly intervened, hugging Giratina's large tail to stop further aggression. End of Chapter 85. Chapter 85, considering that Giratina was a bit unusual, Dak decided to take it to the lab for a checkup. You need to stay in your smallest form, okay? Dak gently patted the giant insect beside him, unsure if the creature could understand him. Whine, Giratina blinked. Then, Dak led Giratina out of Pokémon Island, with Giratina personally creating a spatial gate. They could go directly to the lab without passing through Dak's bedroom. Once they left Pokémon Island, Giratina uncontrollably reverted from its origin form to its altered form, growing to a height of 4.5 meters. The hatchery had a ceiling high enough to accommodate Giratina. However, Giratina's size still nearly filled the remaining space in the lab. Monet, who was in the lab, was startled by the sudden appearance of Giratina and stood frozen, staring at the formidable Pokémon that had appeared out of nowhere. Monet, this is Giratina, our hatchery's new partner. He's very powerful, maybe even stronger than Sceptile and Darkrai. Dak explained to her, as she seemed stunned. Roar! Giratina had a different demeanor when facing others compared to when it was with Dak. It acted like a spoiled child on Pokémon Island, but in front of others, it resumed its proud demeanor as the master of the distortion world. He was truly a dragon of contrasts. He's probably saying hello to you. Oh, hello, Giratina. Monet came to her senses, bowing stiffly to Giratina, her heart still not quite calm. Master Dak, you go ahead. I need to use the restroom. She hurriedly left the lab after making an excuse. Why? Seeing Monet leave, Giratina reverted to its previous demeanor, giving Dak a pitiful look with a tone that seemed to mix confusion and loss. She's not scared of you. She's just shy because it's her first time seeing you. She'll be more comfortable later. Although Dak still couldn't understand what Giratina was saying, he guessed the gist of it. He didn't have the heart to tell Giratina that Monet might have been frightened by its fierce appearance. Not everyone could appreciate the beauty of a lord of the distortion world like he could. Come, let's go inside, and I'll give you a checkup. Dak opened the glass door of the diagnostic device. Giratina obediently walked in on its 6 legs, then turned around to look at Dak with a pitiful expression, as if Dak was about to do something terrible to it. Of course, such a pitiful look could only be perceived with a certain level of intimacy, which Dak had due to the system's bond. If not for the system's added bond, Dak might have thought Giratina was plotting how to dispose of him. The checkup took a long time, much longer than for King Lizard or Darkrai, taking a full 5 minutes, which was 5 times longer than it took for Darkrai. Giratina, shiny, type, ghost/dragon, ability, pressure, Quality, red, height, minimum 4.5 m, altered form, 7 m, origin form. Weight, minimum 650 kilograms, altered form, 750 kilograms, origin form. Age, 1 day, level, LV.85, altered form, LV.95, origin form. Moves, Shadow Force, Draco Meteor, Outrage, Hyper Beam, Thunder, Earthquake. Dak was no longer able to stay calm as he read the information displayed on the screen. It was overwhelming. First, the quality was red, the first red quality Pokemon Dak had seen, seemingly confirming his suspicion that red was likely the quality of first-rate gods. Then, there were Giratina's abilities. With 18 types in existence, and Giratina mastering moves from 15 of them, it lacked only poison, bug, and fairy moves. Lastly, and most shockingly, Giratina's age was only 1 day. How could a newly born Giratina be so powerful? Moreover, unlike Darkrai, Giratina has always been unique in the Pokemon world, never having a second one, let alone a shiny version which only exists in games. Thus, Dak concluded that this Giratina had been created by the system just recently. A baby dragon. Thump, thump, thump. Whined Dak, distracted, looked up when he heard the noise, turning to the diagnostic machine. Giratina seemed uncomfortable inside and had started hitting the glass with its head. Quickly, Dak opened the glass enclosure and led Giratina out. Giratina, you're truly amazing. Dak patted Giratina's head gently. Giratina's level in the One Piece world was exceptionally high, a conclusion Dak made based on Darkrai's power level. Although labeled as LV.100, similar to Darkrai and King Lizard, the nature of this level was quite different. Darkrai had been declared by the system to be comparable to the strongest historical figures of this world at the time of its appearance, equating to a level of LV.100 Sceptile, though not explicitly stated, likely possessed a similar level of power. As for who these historical figures were, that was uncertain. They could be Emu, who has lived for hundreds of years, rocks from the previous era, or the current era's Whitebeard. It was unclear. However, Giratina was different. Its nature was like, others score 100 because they only have 100 potential, but I score 100 because the test only goes up to 100. If it were to fight those three, it might not utterly defeat them, but overwhelming them wouldn't be difficult, especially in its origin form. If Dak could later exchange for the Griseous Orb, allowing Giratina to maintain its origin form even outside, then its real level would jump by 10, making it capable of potentially destroying this world. Seeing the gigantic baby dragon before him, Dak couldn't help but grin. If previously he felt unsure about his ability to overthrow the world government and celestial dragons with just Sceptile and Darkrai, now, with Giratina, Dak felt that toppling the world government and celestial dragons was no longer an issue. But the world still needed the world government to maintain a stable situation for the time being. Dak would continue to develop the hatchery during this period, and his power wouldn't remain static. With Giratina, 3 Pokemon were now more than enough to overthrow the world government. The situation would only become more favorable in the future. The world government, from the moment of Giratina's birth, was no longer a major concern for Dak. Now, the hatchery's biggest enemy was time. Only when Pokemon became the mainstream of this era, and most of the world's civilians possessed the power of Pokemon, could the world government completely disappear. Otherwise, if the world government fell and the Navy lost its financial support during the ongoing Great Pirate Era, there would be no need to think further. Pirates would run rampant, looting and pillaging across the world, turning it into a realm dominated by pirates, with ordinary and kind-hearted people becoming lambs to the slaughter. But when Pokemon became the mainstream, the situation would be entirely different. Not to mention that ordinary people would have Pokemon for self-defense, making it difficult for pirates to harm or rob them. Imagine holding a Pokemon tournament, offering rare items and the unique title of champion as the top prize. What attraction would the One Piece or title of Pirate King hold then? By that time, pirates would be a thing of the past. When pirates couldn't steal or find treasures and had to face the Navy's Pokemon forces, who would want to remain a pirate? In contrast, participating in Pokémon competitions will be prestigious and profitable without risking life. Even if one didn't win, simply showing one's skills could lead to a job offer from the Pokémon Alliance, which would be far better than being a pirate. The era of Pokémon is coming, and trainers will become the mainstream in this sea. Dak murmured with a smile, envisioning that bright future. Why? I'll be counting on your help from now on, Giratina. Roar. Afterward, Dak took Giratina out of the lab to introduce it to everyone. Everyone's reaction was different. Monet was still somewhat afraid, probably because of Giratina's constantly aloof appearance. Sugar, Bon, and Bellamy thought Giratina was incredibly cool and went up to touch and pat it, nearly breaking through its stoic facade. Iceberg, showing politeness, had 2 drops of cold sweat but also showed signs of joy. With Giratina's addition, Mr. Tom's safety seemed less worrisome. As for Robin, her tastes always differed from others. She thought Giratina looked very cute, a sentiment Dak couldn't understand at all. Darkrai, having spied Giratina's true nature, looked at it as an adult would a child that could pin him to the ground with 1 foot. As for Sceptile, well, does it need to be said? He was definitely itching for a challenge with the Lord of the Distortion World. Unfortunately, Dak sternly stopped Sceptile from challenging Giratina this time. A few 100-year-old grandpa picking on a baby just born a day ago? Do you have no shame? End of Chapter 86. Chapter 86. Due to the emergence of Pokémon Island, the Pokémon from a nursery had a larger, freer, and safer living space, so they were all sent there. Another reason was that Giratina was too big and often bumped into things in the shop, so it could only stay on Pokémon Island. Dak worried that Giratina might feel lonely, so he sent the other Pokémon there as well, letting the group entertain Giratina together. Now, only Smoochum and Miltank were left in the shop. They definitely wanted to stay close to their trainer. Once things settle down in Water 7, I'll buy some Pokémon groups to send to Pokémon Island. Dak looked at his system balance, which truly wasn't much. But such a vast Pokémon Island, with only a few Pokémon, probably felt too desolate for them. Dak, the pre-order registration in Water 7 is almost done. It nearly killed me. Bon came back holding a roll of paper. From morning till the night of the 3rd day, the continuous work had almost exhausted him. Let me see. Dak took the roll from Bon. It recorded the pre-orderers' names, addresses, specific requirements for Pokémon, and the amount they were willing to pay. These were merely to help Dak determine which quality of Pokémon egg to purchase from the magic shop. For example, a shipwright needed a partner and assistant to help in the shipbuilding process, ready to pay 2 million belly. For cases like this, where there is no need for the Pokémon to be strong in battle, there's no need to consider quality. Any Pokémon, regardless of quality, can be helpful, though it requires specific species. Certainly, Pokémon like Caterpie, Goldeen, and Magikarp wouldn't be helpful at all. To avoid accusations of defrauding consumers later, Dak would purchase Pokémon eggs based on the amount and requirements specified by the customers. For the shipwright, Dak would buy a green-quality fighting-type Pokémon egg for 1.5 million belly. Fighting-type Pokémon, regardless of the species, could assist the shipwright. The extra 500,000 belly serves as a customization fee for requiring specific species, something Dak had instructed Bon to inform the customers about. So this amount was entirely at the customer's discretion. If the shipwright had requested just a companion Pokémon without specific requirements, then Dak would only provide a green-quality egg costing 1 million belly, with the type and species of the Pokémon being completely random. Unbelievable. According to my survey, there are about 30,000 households in Water 7, and over 10,000 households came to pre-order from us, exceeding 1/3 of the population. Didn't people from outside the city come too? Dak asked Bon. He expected quite a few from outside Water 7 would come to register, though such numbers wouldn't be large since, although Dak had established and opened the branch, he hadn't informed the entire sea. Currently, only the locals of Water 7 would be aware of the branch opening. Dak feared announcing it widely would lead to an influx of various people into Water 7 in a short time, possibly keeping Bond busy just registering pre-orders for a month. So he decided to let the news spread slowly. Some did, but those guys looked a bit sneaky, not sure what they were up to, so I didn't even register them. All right, although there's Navy around, there will inevitably be some people mixed in. Try your best to discern. Dak nodded. These were issues he had anticipated. Undesirable incidents were bound to occur in the future. Inevitably, innocent Pokémon would suffer. Dak could only try to minimize these occurrences as much as possible and get his inspection team up to speed quickly. He also planned to implement other protective measures. Robin, contact Morgans for me. Tell him I want to post a bounty. A bounty? Robin was surprised and then asked, for what? For information on any trainer mistreating their Pokémon worldwide. We will send someone to investigate personally. If true, the informer gets 50,000 belly. This bounty is open to anyone. Navy, revolutionaries, pirates, merchants, information brokers, anyone. This was one of the protective measures Dak thought of on the spot. It would certainly be somewhat useful as this bounty covered virtually every corner and sector of the world. Wherever people were, there would likely be eyes on this bounty. Once their Pokémon League forces grew stronger and the times changed, such incidents would become increasingly rare, and such bounties could then be withdrawn. Okay, I'll contact him now. Robin nodded. Monet, Bond, categorize the information on this list, then summarize a detailed price range chart based on what I taught you, and have it to me by tonight. Okay. X2. Bellamy, come with me to the Whitebeard Pirates. No problem. Afterward, Dak handed the paper to Bond and left the shop with Bellamy. On the Moby Dick, Dak and Bellamy emerged from the kitchen door, casually grabbed a member of the Whitebeard Pirates, and asked him to inform Newgate of their arrival. Soon, Marco, transformed into a phoenix, flew down from the sky and landed in front of Dak and Bellamy. Good thing we're not enemies with the Pokémon Nursery. Your ability to strike directly at someone's home base is truly terrifying. Marco shook his head. If one day they were all asleep and Dak came over with his Pokémon and wiped them out, it's doubtful many of them would react in time. You said it yourself, we're not enemies. Dak waved his hand. As long as it wasn't the world government or the celestial dragons, Dak generally wouldn't take the initiative to strike at any force or organization. Why did you suddenly come over? You must be incredibly busy right now. As Marco led Dak to find Newgate, he didn't forget to inquire about Dak's purpose for visiting. My new staff member, Bellamy, has great potential. I'm looking for a teacher for him in physical skills and hockey. Dak pointed to Bellamy beside him, who respectfully nodded at Marco. Ah, from us? With your and the Navy's relationship. You could directly find Zephyr or Garp, no problem. Marco looked at Bellamy in surprise. He didn't expect Dak to be so generous to his staff, running to the Whitebeard Pirates to find a teacher for him. That's right. Besides you guys, I plan to take him to the Navy later to learn hockey and the 6 powers. Hey, you're too greedy, thinking of eating both the Navy and pirates. Marco slapped Dak's shoulder. This kind of thing probably only Dak could do in the entire sea. Dak shook his head without explaining in detail. Every physical powerhouse focuses on different things. For example, Marco specializes in using legs, Jaws specializes in using arms, Zephyr specializes in using wrists, Garp specializes in using fists. Dak planned to train Bellamy to be a versatile physical powerhouse, a hexagonal warrior. Old man, they're here. Marco led them to the deck at the bow of the ship. Dak looked up. Newgate seemed to always be sitting there, gulping down his drink, with a pink egg hanging from his white beard. He really wondered how Newgate didn't find such a life boring. Yo, Dak, long time no see. Yeah, it's been a while. This time I came over. Dak explained his purpose, introduced Bellamy by his side, and also stated his terms. You've always wanted to buy 10 more Pokemon eggs, right? Consider that money as Bellamy's tuition fee. Oh, no problem. Let Marco and Jaws teach him. Newgate nodded. Actually, even if Dak hadn't offered anything, he wouldn't have refused. In his view, Dak and the Pokemon Nursery were already friends of the Whitebeard Pirates, so a little help like this was nothing. His sons were always idle anyway. You don't have any requests for the Pokemon, do you? No. Newgate shook his head unconcernedly. What's there to request? They, the Whitebeard Pirates, lacked nothing. All right. Dak didn't waste words and immediately opened a magic shop. Random Pokemon Egg. 500 magic coins. Buying 10 eggs for 5,000 magic coins amounted to purchasing 10 blue quality Pokemon eggs. 1 white, 5 green, 3 blue, 1 purple. Gambled on a purple quality egg. Just this one purple quality egg was worth 5,000 magic coins. This 10 draw truly valued 6,755 magic coins. If Dak were to sell these eggs, that would be 135.1 million belly, which was the tuition he paid for Bellamy at the pirate side. Definitely worth it in Dak's view. If Bellamy proves worthy, using this money to train a top-tier human warrior on the sea would indeed be a huge gain. Later, Dak took Bellamy to the Navy and did the same. Zephyr originally didn't want to train a newcomer without a foundation, but when Sengoku heard there were eggs to be had, he agreed on his behalf. 3 green, 7 blue, real value 36.50 magic coins. A loss in gambling. Seems the Navy side isn't very lucky. But Sengoku clearly didn't think so. In his view, whether Zephyr teaches one person or a group, it's all the same. Essentially, they netted 10 Pokemon eggs for a bit of effort, which meant 10 living combat forces for the Navy in the future. Zephyr had some complaints, saying it wasn't Sengoku who had to spend the effort to teach. Sengoku retorted angrily, saying Zephyr doesn't know the cost of housekeeping. The two old men from a past era almost came to blows, with Garp fanning the flames on the side. Fortunately, they were eventually calmed by Tsuru. End of chapter 87. Chapter 87. Now that the grand opening frenzy is past, Dak has instructed Iceberg to send away the crowds gathered at the storefront. While many people are still watching, the situation is no longer as chaotic as it was initially. Dak told the crowd that the Pokemon eggs would be delivered directly to their homes once they arrived. Now, Dak is preparing to stock the shelves of the branch store with merchandise. Moo Moo Milk, 50,000 belly per bottle, Nanab Fruit, 100 belly each poke block, 500 belly for 3 potion, 1,000 belly per bottle, super potion, 5,000 belly per bottle. These are all fairly common items. For the people living in Water 7, the prices are affordable and the items are essentials that trainers might need in their daily lives. Initially, the original Pokemon Ball was also to be stocked, but the main quest hasn't been completed yet, so that machine is still unavailable. He's talking about the Pokeballs on Arceus. The completion of the main quest still troubles Dak to this day. The growth of the little ones isn't too slow, but producing a fight that feels thrilling is rather challenging. Giratina, because of its age bug, is theoretically capable of completing the main quest. The problem is the lack of a worthy opponent. Darkrai and Sceptile combined might manage, but their age doesn't qualify. This results in the main quest being put on hold for now. Dak has decided that if he can't think of anything in a few days, he might as well host a demonstration match in Water 7. Then invite 100 ordinary people to watch this match. For the general populace, the little ones' battles would be quite spectacular. Dak, we've finished the tally. Bon, who had been busy compiling data with Monet, finally completed their task and handed a chart to Dak. Thanks for the hard work. Take a good rest. Dak took the chart prepared by Bon and Monet and glanced over it. Then he headed back to his bedroom and immediately began calculating how many magic coins he would need to purchase Pokemon eggs. Good thing I didn't rush to exchange for special abilities, or I might not have enough magic coins. Dak frowned as he wrote down figures on another sheet of paper. Tens of thousands of orders. Nearly 2/3 are for purchasing green quality Pokemon eggs, which might cost about 350,000 magic coins. Of the remaining third, the majority are orders for white quality eggs, needing only 17,000 magic coins, while the orders for blue quality eggs, though only about 500, would take about 250,000 magic coins. Those who can afford blue quality eggs are mostly nobles and wealthy merchants residing in the inner city of Water 7 or top bosses of various shipyards. They need powerful and loyal Pokemon to ensure their personal safety, so they prefer to spend the money usually reserved for human bodyguards on nurturing a strong Pokemon instead. Looks like it will cost about 520,000 magic coins, and the sales should bring in around 1,330,000 magic coins. Dak roughly estimated, then calculated the astonishing figure. After deducting the cost, there should be a net profit of 800,000 magic coins. However, this money wouldn't be received all at once, because Dak doesn't have enough capital to buy all the Pokemon eggs in one go and sell them immediately. During this period, some customers might change their minds about following the trend and give up on buying Pokemon eggs, or the nursery might find a customer's conduct unsatisfactory and decide not to sell. These are all possibilities. Dak decides to proceed gradually, starting with the business of white-quality eggs first. These customers are mostly ordinary citizens leading plain lives, needing a companion or family member in their daily lives, with no particular demand for the Pokemon and not just whimsical decisions. 17,000 magic coins isn't much, and Dak can easily afford it. Dak first heads to Pokemon Island, as only there is space to accommodate so many Pokemon eggs. Woo! As soon as Dak arrives, before even opening the magic shop, the baby dragon, sensing something, comes over. Giratina appears and immediately bumps into Dak's embrace, not very forcefully, but still knocking Dak back several meters. Thankfully, Dak was prepared and used armament hockey for some defense, otherwise he would have been injured. Giratina is too strong and still too young, often unable to control its own strength. But Dak isn't worried about Giratina hurting others because Giratina is very aloof and doesn't initiate contact with other humans. With other Pokemon, however, Giratina seems a bit shy, rarely approaching others actively, appearing to be socially anxious. All right. Dak quickly pats Giratina's head. At the same time, he notices the other little ones around Giratina, indicating they have gotten along well with it. After spending a few minutes calming down the baby dragon and having it lie quietly on the grass nearby, Dak then opens the magic shop. He immediately purchases nearly 3,500 white-quality Pokemon eggs. In the next moment, the area around Dak and the few Pokemon is swarmed with eggs. The grassland is covered with multicolored Pokemon eggs. Even Giratina's twin blue eyes freeze for a moment, looking around, not understanding what's happening. Sister Eevee reacts the fastest. She jumps off Giratina's back, cautiously tiptoes among the eggs, sniffing this one, then that one, left with 106,900 magic coins. Dak checks the system balance after purchasing the white-quality eggs. Giratina, could you take me over there? Dak pats the baby dragon beside him, who is cautiously sniffing an egg and points in another direction. Woo! Giratina happily obliges, lowering its head to let Dak climb onto its back. When Dak actually gets on Giratina's back, he's thrilled. It's not every day one gets to ride a lord of the distortion world, and a shiny one at that. It's a thrilling experience, soaring through the sky, watching the blurred grassland swiftly pass by below. Let's stop here. Dak doesn't let Giratina fly far before stopping in a nearby open area. As the magic coins continue to drain away, Dak purchases another 2,000 green quality eggs. These 2,000 are custom orders for customers with specific needs. Each egg's attributes are known to Dak, and they will be sold for 500,000 belly more than their purchase price. After buying these Pokemon eggs, Dak's balance of magic coins in the system is down to 6,900. Until he sells these eggs, he won't have the funds to continue purchasing from the magic shop. Dak calls over the other employees, except for Iceberg and Bellamy. Sceptile, continue to watch the store. Bon, I need you to deliver these Pokemon eggs to the customers. I'll have Darkrai secretly protect you. Dak points to the batch of white-quality Pokemon eggs. Since there are no custom orders, there's no need to pay special attention to which customer gets which egg. Dak plans to stay busy on Pokemon Island for the next few days and won't go out, so there's no need for Darkrai to keep guarding. Now, what needs protection are the Pokemon eggs. Robin, contact the underworld for me. Recruit a group of mercenaries to temporarily act as our inspection personnel in Water 7, patrolling the city 24/7 in 3 shifts. I refuse to believe that with the protection of the Navy, mercenaries, and bounty missions, someone would still dare to target our eggs. This is the first public sale of Pokemon eggs, a crucial step in forging the Pokemon era, and Dak takes it very seriously. Issues are bound to arise, but Dak will do everything he can to minimize the likelihood of problems, even if it means spending more money. He exchanges the remaining 6,900 magic coins for 69 million belly, which will fund the recruitment of these mercenaries. Not only is he hiring a group of specialists from the underworld, but Dak also plans to find a group of local toughs from Water 7 who haven't committed serious crimes and try to train them as future inspectors for the League. The group from Frankie's original storyline is a good example. The worst of them were just small-time delinquents, mostly just ordinary people who had fallen into a rut in life and become resigned to their fate. Though they lacked combat skills or special abilities, they were decent people, and Dak would recruit them without fear of betrayal. Unlike the mercenaries recruited from the underworld, Frankie's group, despite being just ordinary delinquents, were willing to lower their heads to ask for the Straw Hat Pirates' help and even rushed headlong into Eni's lobby, known as a place of no return, all to rescue their boss. They were just a bunch of ordinary thugs who might have endangered their future by possibly becoming wanted criminals for this action, but they did it anyway. Although they didn't play as significant a role as Funky in the original story, what they did was, in Dak's view, no less significant. They are reliable partners. Monet and Sugar, come help me tag these eggs with customer information for the next couple of days. Dak points to the batch of custom Pokémon eggs beside him. He needs to write down the corresponding customer addresses on these eggs to prevent Funky and Dak Lay from delivering them to the wrong places. That's about all the tasks for now. Everyone get to work. In a few days, when things calm down a bit, I'll go out and recruit some more people. In a chapter 88, Chapter 88 today, Water 7 is quite bustling. Because today, the Pokemon Nursery's egg delivery bird has started delivering Pokemon eggs door to door. Of course, Egg Delivery Bird is a nickname given by the people of Water 7. The actual identity of this bird is Bon Clay at this moment. Bon Clay is holding a bag in each claw containing about 10 Pokemon eggs, and he is on his way to the next customer's address. Bang! A clear gunshot suddenly emanates from an alley below. Bon Clay glances down and continues to fly forward unperturbed. Although he has been learning dual-color hockey from Dak, daily life is busy and progress is slow, so he hasn't mastered it to the extent of dodging bullets. However, it's not a problem. Dak anticipated this and arranged for the elusive Darkrai to guard him and the Pokemon eggs from the shadows. Every shadow in the city could potentially conceal Darkrai. Those who attack from the shadows think it's the best place to hide, but in reality, the farther away they are from the shadows, the safer they are. At least, they can die slower. The gunshot causes a minor stir in Water 7. When people from that area call the Navy, they find nothing in the alley where the gunshot came from. Did the person escape? Perhaps only Bon Clay knows the answer. On the rest of his route, Bon Clay encounters no further incidents. Whether there were no more foolish people, or whether they were dealt with by Darkrai before they could act, Bon Clay does not know. His only responsibility is to deliver the eggs, which he does with unwavering dedication. By nightfall, when Bon Clay finishes his last planned delivery of the day and returns to the nursery's branch, he stops dead in the sky. In front of the nursery, hundreds of stakes have been erected, each with a head impaled on it. Bon Clay doesn't even need to think about who these people were. They were undoubtedly those who intended harm to him or the nursery's branch that day. But does Daxon know about this? Bon Clay swallows hard. He has always seen Dak as rather benevolent, and he truly cannot imagine Dak ordering the scene of these people's heads displayed in front of the store. Regarding this matter, Bon Clay does not bring it up, but he has an answer in his heart and has made a precise judgment about Dak's actions. Dak's ambition to destroy the world government and create a new era of peace is serious. The next day, this bloody scene stirs up a commotion throughout Water 7. The person who comes forward to explain is not from the Pokemon Nursery, but a Rear Admiral from the nearby Navy base. After verification by the Rear Admiral, among those killed, 30% were bounty criminals, and the majority of the others were bounty hunters from the underworld, likely hired for the job. As for the few unknown faces, even though they had not been seen before, grouped with these individuals, they were probably not up to any good either. This incident gives the people of Water 7, who live a mundane life, a new topic of conversation after meals. Meanwhile, those who originally bought Pokémon eggs to show off now hide their eggs and dare not tell others they have them. This is not the situation Dak-san wanted to see. Pokémon should not be something to be snatched or hidden. Before these Pokémon are born, he must change this situation. At night, on the northern coast of Water 7, Dak and Iceberg are sitting together on a small boat floating on the sea, eating Water 7's specialty, water meat. Before peace arrives, there must always be a great war. This process is destined to be bloody. If not others, then it must be us. Dak looks at the calm sea before him. Someday, the seas outside Water 7 will not be so peaceful. Maybe there will often be a migrating group of Lapras singing as they pass by, or a Wallord performing a water spout, or Milotics intertwining hearts under the moonlight. That era will surely be beautiful. Dak-san, the sea train is almost finished building. Iceberg seems not interested in discussing peace with Dak. He doesn't have such grand ambitions. Oh.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.